Tonight, we are pulling back the curtain and breaking down the complete, untold history of every single Pokémon villain team. From petty theft in Kanto to literally trying to tear apart the fabric of time and space. The Pokémon world has seen some seriously messed up syndicates. This is a fascinating topic, but I'll keep my narration calm to ensure you can still drift off to sleep. Thank you to those of you who've been joining us consistently. Remember to hit the notification bell after subscribing to ensure you never miss a video. If you're falling asleep with us tonight, let me know in the comments how many nights in a row you've been here. And if this is your first night, just comment night 1. Now back to the video. Imagine a world where the bond between human and Pokémon is not one of friendship or mutual growth, but one of cold, calculated exploitation. For over 25 years, the Pokémon series has presented us with a vibrant landscape of discovery. Yet lurking in the shadows of every region, from the industrial alleys of Kanto to the crystalline beauty of Kalos, there exists a darker force. These are the villainous teams, the organizations that see the gods of the earth, sea, and time itself, not as beings to be revered, but as tools to be harnessed. We often remember them for their iconic uniforms or their persistent grunts, but when we pull back the curtain on their true history, we find a terrifying progression of ambition. What began as a simple, criminal syndicate running gambling dens and stealing pets evolved into something far more dangerous. Groups of eco-terrorists, nihilistic cults, and philosophical extremists who were willing to unmake the very fabric of reality to satisfy their own distorted visions of perfection. The stakes of these conflicts have always been higher than a simple 10-year-old's journey might suggest. We aren't just talking about stolen items or lost battles, we are talking about the fundamental stability of the planet. When Team Aqua and Team Magma clashed in the Hoenn region, they weren't just fighting over territory. They were manipulating the primordial weather patterns of the entire globe, threatening to drown the world in a perpetual deluge or wither it away under a relentless sun. When Cyrus of Team Galactic stood atop Spear Pillar, he wasn't looking for money or fame. He was attempting to delete the human spirit and restart the universe from zero. To understand these teams is to understand the darkest corners of the Pokémon lore. The moments where the legendary protectors of the world were brought to their knees by human greed and arrogance. But how did it get to this point? How did a group like Team Rocket, which focused on the black market sale of Slowpoke tails and the forced evolution of Magikarp, pave the way for a man like Lysandre to attempt a global genocide in the name of beauty? There is a connective tissue between these organizations, a shared history of escalating tactics and increasingly radicalized ideologies. We have to wonder what drives a person to join these ranks. Is it the promise of power, a misplaced sense of justice, or perhaps a deep-seated fear of the world as it currently exists? As we journey through the history of these syndicates, we will uncover the secrets of their leaders, men like Giovanni, Ghetsis, and Archie, and see how their personal flaws became the blueprints for international catastrophes. We will explore the hidden laboratories where Mewtwo was given life through agony, the ancient ruins where the sleeping titans of the earth were prematurely awakened, and the high-tech fortresses where the energy of life itself was harvested for destruction. We will look beyond the main series games as well, diving into the shadows of the Orre region, where Pokémon were stripped of their emotions to become soulless fighting machines, and into the stories of the Ranger regions, where the harmony of nature was nearly shattered by those who would use the capture styler for malice. The history of these teams is the history of the struggle for the soul of the Pokémon world. It is a story of how a few brave individuals stood against tide after tide of darkness to ensure that the bond between humans and Pokémon remained pure. So settle in, let the lights dim, and prepare to walk through the chronicles of the most dangerous organizations to ever inhabit the world of Pokémon. In 1996, when Pokémon Red and Green first hit shelves in Japan, a dark blueprint emerged within the vibrant world of Kanto, one that would define villainy across generations. The birth of the criminal syndicate model through Team Rocket. This wasn't just a gang of thieves, it was a structured empire with grunts patrolling shadows, admins barking orders, and a leader pulling strings from the top. Picture the pixelated streets of Celadon City, where fresh-faced trainers like you might wander into a game corner, oblivious to the racket beneath your feet. Team Rocket had carved out underground lairs there, snatching rare Pokémon to fuel a black market that spanned the region. Zubat fluttered in dim caves, Rattata scurried through hideouts, Ekans coiled around stolen Pokeballs, and Coughing belched toxic fumes as guards. Their operations hummed with cold efficiency, a machine built on exploitation that no hero could ignore. Giovanni stood at the heart of it all, his dual identity a masterstroke of deception. By day, he was the esteemed gym leader of Viridian City, the final badge on any trainer's journey, his Persian lounging regally at his side as he tested challenges with earth-shaking Raiden and unyielding Nidoqueen. Trainers revered him, queuing up for that 8th badge under the city's towering gym sign. But peel back the facade, and you found the boss of Team Rocket, orchestrating heists from a concealed headquarters right there in Viridian, disguised as an empty gym. He moved through Kanto's elite circles, rivaling the likes of Silph Co executives, while his operatives drilled into mountains and infiltrated labs. This split persona let him infiltrate every layer of society, from boardrooms to back alleys, his calm demeanour hiding ambitions that stretched far beyond badges. At its core, Team Rocket's foundational philosophy reduced Pokémon to mere tools for profit and global exploitation. Their oath echoed through every grunt's mouth: steal Pokémon for profit, exploit Pokémon for profit, all Pokémon exist for the glory of Team Rocket. Giovanni saw no partners in these creatures, only assets, rare ones auctioned to the highest bidder, common ones twisted into experiments, slowpoke tails severed and sold as delicacies in Celadon, fossils revived in secret labs only to be weaponized, Pokémon fused or mutated for power. He dreamed of monopolizing the world, turning Kanto's wilds into his factory floors, every capture a step toward economic domination and eventual conquest. Grunts chanted it in hidden bases, their black R uniforms a uniform threat, radios crackling with orders to poach Lapras from Seafoam Islands or Voltorb from power plants. This wasn't mindless crime. It was a doctrine, cold and calculated, where loyalty bought with paychecks fueled a vision of Pokémon as currency in a global game. You can feel the tension building in those early routes, where a suspicious grunt blocks Saffron's gates, muttering about big plans upstairs. Yet Team Rocket's reach infiltrated everyday life, poisoning waters in Cerulean, rigging slots in Celadon, even eyeing the Indigo League itself. Giovanni's strategy relied on this invisibility, his gym facade granting access to Saffron's corporate heart, where Silph Company brewed the ultimate Pokeballs. Trainers stumbled into their web, battling waves of Drowsy and Grimer in labyrinthine hideouts beneath the city. The air thick with the beep of machinery and the low growl of captured beasts. Every raid uncovered ledgers of profits, prototypes of control devices, hints of a master ball that could ensnare any legendary. Yet Giovanni's true genius lay in revival. Even whispers of defeat couldn't bury his empire. Kanto's skies darkened under this shadow, with radio towers hijacked in later echoes, but it all stemmed from that 1996 spark. Giovanni's lieutenants, shadowy figures, like Archer or Proton in expanded tales, enforced the creed, turning wild areas into hunting grounds. Mount Moon echoed with cries of abducted Clefairy, fuchsia safari zone, fences breached for Dratini prizes. The philosophy permeated, profit above all, exploitation without remorse, Pokémon reduced to pawns in a syndicate poised for world control. Trainers who dared challenge found themselves outnumbered. Their own partners turned against them through cunning tech. As Team Rocket's grip tightened around Saffron, their boldest strike loomed, a siege on Silph cozies that would expose fractures in Giovanni's empire and test Kanto's youngest heroes like never before. What happened when the corporate tower became a battlefield? Floors crawling with rocket invaders and prototype weapons? That's the chaos waiting in Chapter 2, the Silph Company's Siege. With Giovanni masquerading as Viridian City's gym leader, Team Rocket's shadow stretched across Kanto, turning whispers of theft into a full-scale war for dominance. Saffron City, the gleaming hub of commerce and innovation, became their boldest target yet. Its towering Silph Company headquarters, the prize that could hand them unbreakable power over every Pokémon in existence. Picture the streets of Saffron suddenly choked with grunts in their signature black uniforms, Zubat fluttering overhead like scouting drones, Rattata scurrying through alleys to relay messages. Team Rocket didn't charge in blindly. This was a meticulously planned siege, straight out of a mobster's playbook. They sealed off key routes into the city, posting guards at every entrance, forcing trainers like you to weave through back paths or bribe their way past with battles. But the real masterstroke unfolded inside Silph Company itself, a sprawling 11-story monolith of steel and glass, buzzing with scientists perfecting Pokeball technology. Grunts swarmed the lobby first, smashing security panels and herding researchers into corners at Econ's Point. Elevators ground to a halt, replaced by a chaotic maze of warp panels, those shimmering teleporters jury-rigged by rocket techs, shuffling you between floors in disorienting loops. You'd step into one on the 7th floor, only to pop out on the 1st, facing a fresh squad of coughing, belching poison gas to blind your advance. It was tactical brilliance, divide and conquer, turning the building's own innovations against its defenders. And floors dedicated to R&D became battlegrounds, lab coats stained with sweat as scientists pleaded for mercy while grunts ransacked prototypes. Giovanni's orders were clear: seize the Master Ball schematics at all costs. That device wasn't just any Pokeball, it was the holy grail of capture tech, engineered to snag any Pokémon without fail, no matter how legendary or wild. Team Rocket saw dollar signs in every Mew or Articuno they could bottle and auction off. Executives like Archer or Proton oversaw the operation from hidden command rooms, barking coordinates through walkie-talkies as you climbed higher, battling past admin roadblocks on the upper levels. The air grew thick with tension, fluorescent lights flickering from stray thunderbolts, the hum of machinery drowned out by the cries of captured Pokémon echoing down corridors. By the time you reached the top floor boardroom, Giovanni himself lounged there, Persian at his feet, casually revealing how Silph Company's president had surrendered the Master Ball blueprint under duress. One wrong move, and that tech floods the black market, arming every poacher from Celadon to Cinnabar. But Team Rocket's ruthlessness didn't stop at corporate raids. It seeped into the bones of Kanto's quieter corners, nowhere more hauntingly than Lavender Town. That misty hillside town, with its solemn Pokémon tower rising like a forgotten spire, became a grim testament to their cruelty. Grunts infested the tower's shadowed halls, not just guarding it, but desecrating it, chopping off slow-poke tails for quick cash on the black market, each severed tail a living battery sold to shady buyers in Celadon, leaving the pink creatures writhing in agony on bloodied floors. The air reeked of damp stone and regret, psychic wails bouncing off the walls as Ghastly phased through the gloom. Deeper in, the true horror waited, the ghost of Marowak. She wasn't just any spirit, this was a mother slain by rocket thugs invading the tower, her Cubone orphaned and alone. You'd hear the faint clatter of her bone club dragging across the floor long before you saw her translucent form materialize on the top level, eyes burning with unquenchable rage. No attack could touch her. Bullets, Pokeballs, nothing fazed the apparition, fueled by betrayal. Team Rocket had kidnapped Mr. Fuji, the kindly tower caretaker who'd confronted them over the desecration, holding him to keep the operation running. Rescuing him meant facing that spectral guardian first, her strikes landing like accusations from the grave. It was cruelty distilled, not just exploiting Pokémon, but shattering families, leaving restless dead to haunt the living. Giovanni's empire thrived on such callousness, turning sacred ground into a profit pit. This grounded, mob-style realism is what made Team Rocket the blueprint for every villainous team that followed. No grand speeches about reshaping the world or awakening gods, just cold, hard crime. They strong-armed gym leaders into their ranks, ran underground labs reviving fossils for sale, even extorted entire towns with slowpoke tail loan sharking. Zubat in the shadows, Koofing choking the air, grunts mouthing that chilling oath, steal Pokémon for profit, exploit them for the glory of Team Rocket. It felt real, like a syndicate you could stumble into on any city street, their hideouts tucked under game corners or boardwalk casinos. That tangible menace, petty theft escalating to sieges, set the tone for the franchise, grounding later eco-fanatics and cultists in a world where villainy starts with greed and ends in gyms turned battlefronts. As you drive them out of Silph Company, handing the Master Ball prototype to a grateful president and foiling Giovanni's Pokémon League ambitions, cracks appear in their facade. Whispers circulate of deeper experiments, genetic horrors born in hidden Cinnabar labs that dwarf even the lavender atrocities. What forbidden creation did they unleash next? A being of pure psychic fury that could topple gods themselves. That's the chilling truth we'll uncover in Chapter 3, the Mewtwo Project. While the echoes of Marowak's vengeful spirit still haunted Lavender Tower, Hoenn and Silph Company's Master Ball slipped through their fingers, Giovanni retreated to the smouldering heart of Cinnabar Island. There, in the shadow of a restless volcano, his most secretive operation pulsed with forbidden life. The Pokémon Mansion, that charred ruin perched on the island's edge, wasn't just a forgotten gym leader's folly. It concealed vaults of classified research logs, pieced together from salvaged diaries and data drives that survived the fires. Those logs paint a chilling picture of obsession. Entry after entry details the excavation of ancient amber from the rainforest, yielding a single eyelash from Mew, the elusive genetic ancestor of all Pokémon. Giovanni's lead geneticist, a man known only as Dr. Fuji in the fragmented records, spearheaded the project under codename New Life. They didn't just revive a fossil, they rewrote the code of existence using recombinant DNA splicing, infusion of rare earth minerals from Cerulean Cave, and neural accelerators powered by stolen Silph tech. The team engineered an embryo that grew at an unnatural rate. The logs describe containment chambers humming with psychic feedback, walls cracking under embryonic telekinetic bursts by week 12. This wasn't revival, it was rebirth as the ultimate weapon, a Pokémon engineered for raw power, intellect and loyalty, hard-coded to serve Team Rocket's empire. The gestation tanks glowed under crimson emergency lights as the creature stirred. Log 47 notes the first words. Not cries, but calculated probes into the handlers' minds. Why am I here? By log 62, the subject, Mewtwo, had shattered its pod, levitating shards like a storm of glass. Giovanni arrived personally, his Persian at his side, envisioning a psychic juggernaut to crush rivals, seize legendaries, and dominate the world market in black market Pokémon. The final entries grow frantic. Containment breaches, staff vanishing into psychic voids, the lab's fusion core overloading from Mewtwo's raw energy output. They built the ultimate weapon, all right, a being whose power index dwarfed even the mightiest legendaries. Cloned not from nature's blueprint, but from humanity's hubris. Yet the deeper horror lies in the moral chasm those logs expose. Cloning Mew wasn't science, it was defiance of the natural order. Pokémon evolve through bonds, battles, ecosystems. cycles honed over eons. Mewtwo bypassed it all, infused with human ambition, amplified aggression from Ekan's venom trials, endurance from Onyx mineral grafts, a mind sharpened to rival a supercomputers. The pursuit of transcendence turned grotesque. Staff journals confess nightmares of the clones' hollow eyes, reflecting their own doubts. Was this creation a god, or a mirror to their sins? Ethical memos, buried in the data, debate the soul's absence. Could a lab-born entity feel joy, loyalty, or rage without a mother's warmth? Protests from junior researchers were silenced. One log entry hints at accidental psychic erasures. Giovanni saw profit and power. His scientists glimpsed the abyss. They chased a Pokémon beyond nature, only to birth a force that questioned its very creators. Humans and Pokémon, both slaves to instinct. The fallout rippled beyond the lab. Cinnabar's volcano erupted days after the escape, burying evidence under lava flows, a convenient cover. Ye saw divine retribution. Mewtwo vanished into the ether, its psychic signature a ghost signal across Kanto's networks. Giovanni's empire teetered. Whispers among grunts spoke of the boss's private fury, his failed bids to reclaim the clone via cloned armor and psychic amplifiers. He poured millions into tracking beacons embedded in the tank residue, dispatched elite squads to Seafoam Islands on false leads, but Mewtwo eluded him every time. The ultimate failure crystallized in a hidden Rocket Summit log. Giovanni, pacing before a holographic map, admitting his creation, rejected the leash. It sees me as I am, a cage for its power. The weapon he forged slipped his grasp, turning his dream of dominion into a nightmare of reprisal. In the end, the Mewtwo project didn't just fail Giovanni, it exposed the fragility of control. A being born to conquer rebelled against its god, leaving scars on Cinnabar's ashen shores that no eruption could fully erase. But Team Rocket's shadow lingered, regrouping in distant lands where old signals would soon stir new chaos. Tune in for Chapter 4, echoes of the past in Johto, where a radio tower's hum awakens ghosts Giovanni thought buried forever. But as the dust settled over Cinnabar Island's shattered labs, where the echoes of Mewtwo's raw power still lingered in the scorched air and fractured cloning vats, Giovanni vanished without a trace. No final broadcast, no defiant manifesto, just silence, thick and oppressive, swallowing Team Rocket whole. Kanto's underworld whispered rumors of his defeat at the hands of a child trainer, but the truth cut deeper. Their leader, the architect of Pokémon exploitation, had slipped into the shadows, leaving his empire leaderless. For 3 full years that silence reigned. No raids on Silph Company, no black market auctions of rare specimens, no Zubat swarms descending on unsuspecting routes. Team Rocket's once iron grip loosened, their hideouts abandoned to rust and Rattata nests. Grunts scattered, some turning informant for the League, others fading into civilian life, haunted by the ghosts of slowpoke tails severed for profit, and fossil Pokémon revived only to be discarded. In that void, a new power stirred, the executives. Proton, with his sly grin and wheezing clouds that choked the air like regret. Ariana, her Arbok strikes as venomous as her unyielding loyalty. Archer, the strategist whose Houndoom howled plans into the night. And Petrel, the infiltrator who mimicked voices to sow chaos. These 4 rose not through brute force but through sheer survival instinct, piecing together fragments of Giovanni's vision from old data drives and whispered oaths. They weren't visionaries like their boss, they were remnants clinging to the oath that all Pokémon exist for Team Rocket's glory. Under their fractured command, the organization didn't rebuild. It simmered, a pot ready to boil over. You can almost feel the tension in Johto's misty roots, where the wind carried faint echoes of Kanto's downfall. Team Rocket shifted then, from a structured empire of labs and corporate takeovers to a fractured, nostalgic insurgency. No more grand schemes for world domination. Instead, desperate grabs at relevance, fueled by memories of better days. Grunts wore faded uniforms, patched with Johto fabrics, their ekans coiled tighter around nostalgia for the Silph siege. They hid in the goldenrod underground, trading stories of Giovanni's Viridian gym facade like war tales around a campfire, their Zubat echolocating through the dark tunnels for any sign of return. It was 3 years into this limbo, in the heart of Johto's wild north, that the first crack appeared, a desperate radio signal piercing the static from the Lake of Rage. Picture the scene, the lake's surface roiling under a blood-red moon, Magikarp flopping in agony as electric pulses warped their fragile bodies. Team Rocket had jury-rigged a massive transmitter on the water's edge, hidden among the pines, broadcasting a carrier wave that hijacked Pokémon minds across the region. Zubat fluttered erratically overhead, drawn by the signal's hum, while grunts manned consoles, flickering with green code, their faces gaunt from isolation. That signal wasn't just noise, it was a weapon, forcing evolution on the lake's teeming Magikarp population. Thousands of them thrashed, scales splitting as they swelled into hulking Gyarados, their roars shaking the earth like thunder from a storm god's fury. The air thickened with the metallic tang of ozone and the wet slap of transforming flesh. Magikarp, those humble fish Pokémon, twisted into rage beasts overnight. Proton's voice crackled through the broadcast, laced with manic urgency. To all loyal Rockets, hear us. The boss will return, we summon his shadow. But it backfired spectacularly. The Gyarados rampage alerted the league, drawing trainers to the shore where red-scaled serpents lashed at the stars. This wasn't the calculated cruelty of Cinnabar's clones or Lavender's ghosts. It was improvisation born of desperation. Executives pooling tech scavenged from rocket hideout ruins to mimic Giovanni's old radio controls from Kanto. The forced evolutions flooded Johto with feral Gyarados, their azure cousins paling in comparison, turning the lake into a battlefield of churning waves and splintered boats. Grunts fled into the Tylo flocks, but the signal lingered, a siren call pulling remnants back to the fold, whispering promises of revival. Ariana's Ariados webs trapped defectors, while Archer plotted supply lines through ice path blizzards, their insurgency more scavenger hunt than conquest. Johto's people felt it too, fishermen hauling mutated catches, trainers dodging rogue Gyarados on Route 44, the region's peace fractured by echoes of Kanto's sins. As the Lake of Rage's waters finally calmed, leaving behind a graveyard of half-evolved scales glinting under dawn light, the executives doubled down. Their radio plea had worked, in a twisted way. Scattered cells converged, coughing, belching smoke signals of reunion. But the cost mounted, and whispers grew of a hidden stronghold. A town blanketed in eternal winter, where the true resurgence brewed. That leads us straight into Chapter 5. The Mahogany Town incident, where Team Rocket's gambit spirals into something far deadlier, pulling Johto to the brink. Stick around. You won't want to miss how it all unravels from there. As the echoes of that manipulated Magikarp frenzy at the Lake of Rage faded, the trail of Team Rocket's resurgence pointed unerringly toward the quiet coastal town of Mahogany. This sleepy settlement, nestled among snow-dusted pines and overlooking the bitter Johto Sea, had always thrived on simple trade, wood carvings, herbal remedies, and trinkets for passing trainers. But beneath its unassuming facade, a grotesque operation pulsed with renewed rocket ambition, one that preyed on the docile slowpoke in ways that chilled even the hardiest investigators. You arrive in Mahogany under a slate-grey sky, the air thick with the scent of pine sap and distant salt. The local gym leader, Price, bars his doors, muttering about security concerns that no one dares question. Whispers circulate among fishermen. Slowpoke, those pink, perpetually dopey creatures from the nearby shores, have vanished in droves. Their tails, prized in gourmet markets as a rare delicacy believed to grant telepathic clarity, fetch astronomical prices on the black market. What locals don't know is the scale of the harvest. Rockets have turned the Slowpoke well into a factory of suffering, severing tails with cold precision, knowing full well they regrow but inflicting agony each time. Blood stains the cavern walls, and the muffled cries echo like a dirge through the damper stone. Suspicion falls on the unremarkable souvenir shop at the town's edge, its shelves lined with polished slowpoke shells and faux tail replicas that gleam under flickering lantern light. The shopkeep eyes you warily, his Rattata skittering behind the counter. A single misstep, a challenge to his loyalties, and the floor rumbles, uncovering the hidden base beneath the souvenir shop, and the exploitation of slowpoke tails reveals the full horror. A concealed elevator drops you into a labyrinthine warehouse, humming with generators and reeking of antiseptic and despair. Crates overflow with severed tails, flash frozen for shipment to shadowy buyers across Kanto and Johto. Grunts patrol with Zubat swarms, their belts heavy with Pokeballs stolen from nearby routes. Deeper in, surgical tables hold writhing slowpoke, psychic pulses flaring weakly as blades descend. This isn't mere poaching, it's industrialized cruelty. Funding rockets come back with every lucrative snip. Proton, the sly executive with his smirking grin, oversees it all, his wheezing belching toxic fumes to mask the screams. Clearing the warehouse demands every ounce of your cunning, battling through poison traps and collapsing tunnels, freeing slowpoke that flop gratefully toward the surface. But victory here only cracks the surface. Sealed doors hint at a vast submarine dock below, primed to launch an invasion fleet. Word spreads fast in Johto's shadows, drawing an unlikely ally. Lance, the Dragon Master of the Elite Four, descends into the fray like a crimson storm. Cloaked in his signature cape, Dragonite at his side, he recognizes the rocket insignia with the fury born of old Kanto grudges. Together, you forge through the Johto underground, a sprawling network of service tunnels snaking beneath Mahogany streets, lit by bioluminescent Golbat wings and rigged with electrified rails. The intervention of Lance and the protagonist in the Johto underground turns the tide. His hyper beam shatters barricades, while your team navigates pitfalls laced with muck slime. Grunts scatter, their coughing exploding in futile defiance as you commandeer rocket disguises from a fallen foot soldier. Uniforms stiff with the stink of underground mold, these tunnels spit you out toward Goldenrod City, heart of Johto's commerce, where Rocket's masterstroke unfolds. The radio tower looms like a steel spire piercing the clouds, its broadcasts hijacked to beam mind control signals across the region. Executives Ariana and Archer hold court at the pinnacle, their Persian lounging amid banks of whirring transmitters. The air crackles with static, Pokémon in nearby balls twitching under the waves. You and Lance storm the levels in a blitz of feints and fury. Elevator shafts rigged with tripwires, studios turned battlegrounds where DJs cower behind consoles. Archer's Houndoom scorches the air, Ariana's Arbok coils like a living whip, but resolve prevails. At the summit, the signal dish shatters under Dragonite's wing beats, silencing the broadcast that birthed the Lake of Rage horror. In the aftermath, as smoke curls from the tower's heights, the executives concede defeat with bitter snarls. Without Giovanni's iron fist to rally them, fractures widen. Proton vanishes into the shadows, Ariana retreats to forgotten outposts. The final stand at the Goldenrod radio tower, and the permanent dissolution of the rocket name, marks the Syndicate's Johto collapse. Hideouts abandoned, subs scuttled, tails trade halted by outraged authorities. Slowpoke return to their shores, tails regenerating under watchful eyes, while Price finally unlocks his gym, honouring the heroes who cleansed his town. Yet whispers persist. Giovanni's shadow lingers in Viridian Gym, a final enigma unsolved. For now, Team Rocket fades into Legend's margins, but the villainous flame reignites across the sea in Hoenn, where primal forces clash in a rift that threatens to drown or scorch the world. Chapter 6, Great Schism of Hoenn, uncovers how two rival teams tear the region apart in their war over land and sea. What cataclysmic betrayal could pit eco-terrorists against each other? And which ancient behemoth will tip the scales? Drift deeper with me as we explore. As the echoes of Lance's Dragonite fading into the Johto night still lingered over that hidden base beneath the Mahogany souvenir shop, where slowpoke tails were harvested like grim currency, the Pokémon world shifted its shadowed gaze southward to the island chains of Hoenn. There, in the humid cradle of volcanic peaks and endless turquoise seas, a rift was tearing open. not between trainer and criminal, but between two visions of paradise so fiercely opposed, they threatened to drown or scorch the land itself. Team Aqua and Team Magma emerged from Hoenn's rugged underbelly, their origins tangled in the salty mists of Slateport's docks and the ashen slopes of Mount Chimney, what began as scattered bands of smugglers, pilfering rare corals and poaching Numal for their magma-rich hides, quickly fractured into something far more venomous. Petty thefts of Pukagiana pups and Carvana schools gave way to a philosophical blood feud, where every stolen Zubat echo in their sea caves or lava tunnels whispered of dominion over nature's balance. At the heart of this divide stood Archie and Maxie, two men forged in the same fires of youthful idealism, yet pulled apart by oceans of conviction. They had crossed paths decades earlier in the back alleys of Rustboro, both wide-eyed scholars of Hoenn's ancient ecology, poring over weathered tablets that spoke of primal forces shaping the world. Archie, with his sailor's build and salt-crusted beard, saw the land sprawl as a blight, choking the life-giving seas that birthed all true vitality. Maxie, gaunt and bespectacled, his voice a precise scalpel, viewed the endless waves as wasteful chaos, a barrier to the fertile earth that could nurture endless growth. Friends once, collaborators even, sketching maps of a harmonious Hoenn under flickering tentacle lanterns. They splintered when their dreams collided, each claiming the other's path as heresy. Archie's Team Aqua clad themselves in nautical blues, their hideouts carved into the dripping walls of underwater grottos, where the crash of waves masked their plotting. They preached a gospel of submersion, dreaming of a world reclaimed by the deep, where coral spires pierced the sky and humanity learned humility amid the tides. Maxie's Team Magma, in fiery reds, burrowed into volcanic layers, their air thick with sulfur and the rumble of camerupt herds. They envisioned continents thrusting skyward, deserts blooming into verdant empires, oceans reduced to mere lakes serving the land's supremacy. What started as raids on each other's supply ships, stealing orbs and orbs of Devon Corporation tech, escalated into open sabotage, Magma dynamiting Aqua's submersibles off Dewford shores, Aqua flooding Magma outposts with torrents from captured Whiskash. This wasn't mere turf war. It marked the chilling evolution from street-level grift to orchestrated apocalypse. Gone were the days of Rocket's black market Pokémon trades or Johto's tail farms. Aqua and Magma weaponized ideology. Their grunts no longer just thieves but zealots dosing the air with propaganda. They tampered with weather institutes, seeding storms to erode coastlines or droughts to crack seabeds. Eco-terrorism bloomed into bioterrorism as they unleashed swarms of Sharpedo to shred fishing fleets and camerupt stampedes to bury villages in lava flows, all in service of tipping Hoenn's delicate primal balance. The air grew heavy with the scent of ozone and brimstone, civilians whispering of end times as the sea levels flickered unnaturally, and Mount Chimney belched perpetual fury. Their shared history only deepened the venom. Whispers persisted of a pact broken over a disputed relic, unearthed near Meteor Falls, where Archie clutched a sapphire gleam and Maxie a crimson one, vowing mutual destruction. Aqua's subs prowled the currents, harpooning Magma hovercraft. Magma's drill rigs pierced Aqua's atolls, venting superheated steam. Hoenn's trainers watched in horror as the schism scarred the land, from the flooded streets of Slateport to the cracked earth of Jagged Pass, each side blaming the other for the rising chaos. Yet beneath their rhetoric swirled something ancient, artifacts, pulsing with otherworldly power that could make their mad dreams real. The blue orb, humming with abyssal cold, and the red orb, searing with primal heat. These twin keys to legendaries like Kyogre and Groudon would ignite the true cataclysm. We'll dive into their forbidden origins and the devastation they unleashed in Chapter 7. The blue and red orbs. As the dust settled from their initial clashes across Hoenn's rugged landscapes, Archie and Maxie realized their visions demanded more than blind ambition. They required instruments of divine power. Nestled in forgotten scrolls and etched into the walls of ancient ruins, whispers of the blue and red orbs surfaced. Twin relics forged in an era when the sea and land waged eternal war. These weren't mere trinkets. They were the harnesses for primordial titans, artifacts said to subjugate Kyogre and Groudon themselves. The slumbering behemoths whose awakenings could drown continents or scorch them barren. Team Aqua's divers scoured the sodden depths off Dewford Town first, their Carvania slicing through murky currents while Archie pored over tidal charts stained with salt water. Maxie's geologists, meanwhile, tunneled into the arid craters of Route 112, Numal hauling crates of dynamite as they chased seismic echoes. Both leaders converged on the same truth. The orbs rested in a place of restless spirits, where Hoenn's dead converged to mourn their Pokémon companions. Mount Pyre loomed on the horizon, a smouldering pyramid of ash and bone piercing the sky like a funeral pyre that never extinguished. Its slopes wept black lava tears into the sea, and inside, layers of labyrinthine halls twisted upward to a summit chamber, pulsing with otherworldly heat. The hunt for the ancient artifacts, capable of controlling the primordial titans, intensified as grunts from both teams shadowed each other through the underbrush. Zubat flocks scattering like living alarms. Aqua slipped in under cover of night, their Pukina silencing patrols with muffled snarls, while Magma's Camerupt belched veils of smoke to blind the opposition. Tensions boiled over in the inner sanctum, where spectral Duskull drifted like forgotten regrets, their cries echoing off walls lined with urns containing the ashes of countless bonds severed by time. Archie and Maxie, once collaborators in a misguided youth, now faced off amid the glow of crimson embers, each clutching fragments of lore that pointed to the orb's pedestal. In a daring midnight raid that history would etch into Hoenn's shadowed annals, the infiltration of Mount Pyre and the theft of the keys to the world's destruction unfolded. Aqua's sharpshooters perched on precarious ledges, Sharpedo thrashing below to deter climbers. As grunts rappelled down sheer obsidian faces, slick with condensation, Magma countered with earth-shaking stomps from their mighty inner packs, cracking the mountain's veins and unleashing geysers of superheated steam. Fists flew in the gloom, Admin Matt grappling with Tabitha over a crumbling stairwell, their breaths ragged amid the stench of sulfur and decay. At the apex, guarded by a colossal chamber where flames danced without fuel, the orbs hovered in crystalline suspension. The red orb a throbbing heart of sapphire veins, pulsing like the ocean's fury, and the blue orb a molten core veined in ruby, humming with terrestrial rage. Archie seized the red orb first, its chill seeping through his glove like the abyss calling him home, while Maxie wrenched the blue free, feeling its weight anchor him to the earth's unyielding core. They vanished into the night, orbs clutched like stolen stars, leaving Mount Pyre trembling in their wake, spirits wailing as if sensing the apocalypse they'd unleashed. Back in their submersible lairs and volcanic strongholds, the leaders attuned the relics through rituals drawn from crumbling tablets, chants invoking the Titans' names under blood moons, the orbs absorbing the life force of captured Pokémon to amplify their command. But power like this demands precision, and hubris breeds catastrophe. The misuse of the orbs leads to a loss of control over the legendary beasts in ways neither visionary anticipated. Archie's red orb, meant to soothe Kyoga's primal floodlust, instead amplified it into a maelstrom of unchecked wrath, the sea god thrashing against invisible chains that chafed its ancient instincts. Maxie's blue orb fared no better. Groudon's Droughtbringer essence rebelled, igniting solar flares that warped the land into fractured badlands far beyond his blueprint. Grunts whispered of visions in the night, whirlpools swallowing fleets whole, fissures belching magma that consumed outposts, while the orbs themselves cracked faintly, their glow flickering like dying embers. Hoenn quaked under the strain, weather patterns inverting as rain boiled into steam and skies cracked with drought lightning. Protagonists raced through the chaos, their own bonds with Pokémon serving as unwitting counterweights. But the true unraveling came from the Titan's defiance. Kyoga dove into abyssal trenches to escape the orb's siren call, while Groudon burrowed into mantle depths, their roars reverberating through the region like the planet's dying heartbeat. Archie and Maxie, blinded by triumph, pushed harder, only to watch their dreams fracture as the orbs backlashed, searing their wielders with visions of cataclysmic failure. The stage was set now, with orbs in hand and titans stirring uneasily in their prisons. What happens when these leaders finally invoke the full ritual, summoning the tide that could swallow Hoenn whole? That's the heart of Chapter 8, awakening the primordial tide, where the seas rise and the ground splits in a clash that tests the very fabric of the world. Stay with me as we descend into that watery abyss. With the blue and red orbs stolen from Mount Fire's sacred chamber, Archie and Maxi wasted no time. Team Aqua's leader descended into the murky depths of Seafloor Cavern, that labyrinthine trench off Route 132, where sunlight never pierced the gloom. The red orb throbbed in his grip, its energy sinking with the ancient seal holding Kyogre captive. As he chanted the forgotten incantation passed down through Hoenn's lore, the cavern walls trembled. Cracks spiderwebbed across the stone, and from the abyss rose Kyogre itself, the primordial sea god, its massive blue body uncoiling like a living tsunami, eyes blazing with primal fury unleashed after eons of slumber. Across the region, Maxi mirrored the ritual in the scorched bowels of Terror Cave. Hidden beneath Route 114's desert expanse, the blue orb flared in his palm, shattering Groudon's earthen prison. The ground continent heaved upward as the land titan emerged, its red hide steaming with volcanic heat, roar echoing like the birth of mountains. These weren't mere Pokémon. They were forces of nature, incarnate, embodiments of ocean and earth, locked in eternal conflict since Hoenn's creation myth. Archie gazed upon Kyogre with manic glee, convinced this deluge would drown humanity's overreach and birth his aquatic paradise. Maxi, perched above Groudon's awakening, saw only salvation in the expanding continents, oceans receding to make way for boundless land. But victory soured almost instantly. Kyogre summoned relentless downpours, turning Hoenn's skies into an unending storm. Rivers swelled into raging torrents. Coastal cities like Slateport vanished under waves that swallowed homes and Pokémon alike. Verdant forests drowned in mudslides. Farmlands became brackish swamps where crops rotted overnight. Meanwhile, Groudon's drought seared the earth, cracking soil into chasms, evaporating lakes to dust bowls. Wild Pokémon fled in panic, wings flapping desperately against gale-force winds, herds stampeding from fissures belching lava. The resurrection of Kyogre and Groudon triggered immediate ecological collapse, Hoenn's delicate balance fracturing into cataclysm. Fishermen off Dewford watched their fleet splinter on rogue swells. Farmers in Route 111 harvested nothing but withered husks under a sun turned merciless. Archie stood on Aqua's submarine deck as Kyogre's primal fury raged unchecked, expecting marine life to thrive. Instead, the floods poisoned coral reefs with silt, suffocating schools of tentacool and wingull that once teemed the waters. His vision of a water-covered utopia curdled into horror. Mass die-offs of land Pokémon swept into the sea, only to perish adrift. Maxi, from Magma's high perch, witnessed Groudon's expansion sterilize soils, turning fertile valleys into barren wastes where even hardy Numel collapsed from thirst. Their dreams collided in a hellscape of hyper-extremes. Flash floods carving canyons in newly dried seabeds, heat mirages warping the air over submerged plateaus. Then came the realization of Archie and Maxi that their utopias were actually extinction events. Archie pounded his fist against the sub's console, screaming into the storm as reports flooded in, entire ecosystems obliterated, not elevated. "This isn't dominance," he muttered, voice breaking. "It's annihilation." Maxi, glasses fogged with ash, stared at monitors showing aerial views of Hoenn's ruination, his calculations failing against nature's backlash. "We've invited the end," he whispered, the weight of unintended apocalypse crushing his intellect. Their ideological war had summoned not paradise, but a double-edged apocalypse threatening every living soul on the island chain. High above the chaos, as skies blackened and earth quaked, a piercing cry split the heavens. Rayquaza, the Sky Guardian coiled eternally in the ozone layer, sensed the imbalance. This serpentine dragon, Hoenn's ultimate arbiter, descended in a streak of emerald fury, mega-revolving mid-flight into its majestic form. Yet Mega Rayquaza positioned itself between the titans, draconic roar commanding primal obedience. Kyogre's reins faltered, Groudon's heat dimmed, their energy siphoned into Rayquaza's stabilizing aura. The sky-high dragon enforced nature's equilibrium, driving the beasts back to dormancy, orbs relinquished, leaders humbled or fleeing in disgrace. In the Emerald timeline, where both teams clashed directly at Sky Pillar, Rayquaza's intervention proved even more decisive, shattering their orbs and restoring fragile harmony just as protagonists arrived to seal the victory. Hoenn teetered on oblivion's edge, saved only by the Wild Zone Sentinel. Yet whispers persist in ancient texts of deeper powers stirring beneath these events. Primal forces that echo into Hoenn's remastered legends. You'll want to stay tuned for Chapter 9, the Delta episode and Primal Reversion, where meteor showers unveil even wilder transformations and cosmic threats that make these tides seem like mere ripples. As the super-ancient titans clashed in a storm of primal fury, their awakened forms ripping apart the skies over Sotopolis City, the fragile balance Archie and Maxie had shattered revealed a deeper cataclysm. Rain hammered the earth like judgment from the deep, while fissures spewed molten rock, turning Hoenn into a battlefield of biblical proportions. Yet even in their hubris, neither leader grasped the full scope of what they'd unleashed. Not until Rayquaza descended, its emerald scales gleaming with otherworldly power, forcing a truce not through mercy, but through raw dominance. This moment marked the turning point in the remakes, Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, where the story peeled back layers of Hoenn's concealed past, expanding the lore far beyond the original games. What began as a clash between ocean exatlets and terrestrial expansionists unveiled an ancient cycle etched into the region's very stones, a history of recurring apocalypse that the villainous teams had blindly reignited. Deep in the lore of these enhanced versions, Hoenn's origins trace back to warring civilizations divided by primal forces. One faction revered the sea, crafting the red orb to bind Kyoga in eternal service, dreaming of boundless waters. The other exalted the land, forging the blue orb to command Groudon, envisioning continents swallowing every wave. Their conflict escalated until the world teetered on annihilation. Skies choked with conflict, oceans boiling, earth cracking under impossible strain. Salvation came from above. Rayquaza, the Sky Guardian, intervened by tapping into a forgotten power known as primal reversion. Picture the terror of that first reversion, not the polished mega evolutions you'd see in battles today, but a raw, atavistic surge, drawing from meteorites older than mountains. Kyoga and Groudon, in their base forms already godlike, were transformed into something cataclysmic. Kyoga's blue skin pulsing with absorbed moisture, fins elongating into tidal engines that summoned oceans from thin air. Groudon's red hide hardening into drought-forged armor, its dorsal fin igniting to evaporate seas in an instant. But Rayquaza matched them, its body elongating, golden accents blazing as it primal reverted. Draconic maw roaring with authority that quelled the chaos. This wasn't mere power, it was evolution's brutal reset button, reverting legendaries to their primordial states, amplifying their might to levels that could unmake the world. The true scale of Hoenn's threat lay here, buried in these revelations. The villains hadn't just risked flood or drought. They'd courted total extinction, echoing that ancient war where civilizations crumbled to dust. Every tremor, every gale, hinted at the meteor's shadow, the very source of primal energy, looming unseen, ready to collide and rewrite reality. Enter the Delta episode, a post-game saga unlocked after the dust settled, thrusting you into Hoenn's meteor-chased underbelly. A strange meteor streaks across the sky, pulsing with alien life. Ghetsis, the DNA splicer, drawn inexorably toward the region. But you're not alone in noticing. From the mist-shrouded sea morval emerges Zinnia, a fierce guardian clad in draconid robes, her Altaria ever at her side. The draconids, you see, are no mere tribe. They're the last keepers of Hoenn's forbidden lore, descendants of those who witnessed the primal wars firsthand. For generations, they've guarded the Meteor Falls' secrets, inscribing prophecies on cave walls and dragon fangs. Zinnia reveals their chilling foresight. They knew teams like Aqua and Magma would rise, blinded by ideology, to awaken the Titans once more. The Draconids had predicted it all. The orbs' theft from Mount Pyre, the cave-ins at Sky Pillar, the villains' inevitable failures. Why? Because history was a loop, scripted by the stars. Every 50,000 years, the meteor returns, testing Hoenn's worthiness. The teams were mere pawns, their schemes doomed to collapse under Rayquaza's primal judgment. Just as in antiquity, Zinnia doesn't mince words. She challenges you directly, her eyes burning with the weight of eons, testing if you're the Draconid Meteor's chosen one. Together, you race across Hoenn, diving into the warped space of the meteor's core, battling Deoxys' polymorphic forms as it shifts from attack to defense in heart-stopping fluidity. The Draconid's role crystallizes. Not saviors, but sentinels, whispering warnings through lore that only the worthy decipher. They foresaw Archie's waves crashing harmlessly, Maxie's lands crumbling to Rayquaza's might, their utopias dissolving like mist before dawn. In the episode's climax, aboard the drifting meteor, Zinnia unveils the ultimate truth. Primal Reversion's terrifying power stems from those ancient meteorites, fragments of which power the orbs and megastones. Hoenn's threat isn't regional, it's cosmic. Deoxys' arrival threatens to shatter Sky Pillar anew, dooming Rayquaza to slumber and restarting the cycle unchecked. You mega-evolve your own Rayquaza, primal if you've earned it, forcing Deoxys back to space, sealing the prophecy. Zinnia fades into legend, her people preserved through you, their predictions vindicated once more. As the meteor's glow fades and Hoenn breathes again, the scars of Aqua and Magma's folly linger, a reminder that some ambitions invite forces beyond mortal grasp. But whispers from the north grow colder still, where a new threat calculates not with passion, but with the icy precision of oblivion. Up next in Chapter 10, the cold logic of Team Galactic, as the Draconid prophecies in Hoenn whispered of inevitable downfall for those who tampered with the world's balance. The winds of Sinnoh carried a far more absolute chill. Team Galactic didn't chase utopias of endless sea or scorched earth. Their vision pierced straight to the heart of existence itself, led by a man whose gaze held no warmth, only the sterile gleam of calculated oblivion. Cyrus stood at the apex of this machine, his tailored black suit and silver hair cutting a figure as precise as a scalpel. Born from the shadows of a fractured family in Sunny Shore City, he inherited not love, but a profound disdain for the chaos of human connection. To him, emotions were not just flaws, they were the root of all suffering, a toxic filth that muddied the purity of a perfect world. He saw the human spirit not as a spark of divinity, but as a willful imperfection, a glitch in the cosmic code that bred conflict, greed, and endless cycles of pain. In his private journals, later uncovered in the ruins of their Veilstone headquarters, Cyrus wrote of emotions as parasites, devouring reason, and leaving only ruin in their wake. He sought to excise them entirely, not through therapy or philosophy, but by unmaking reality down to its fundamental threads. Team Galactic's public face masked this abyss with a veneer of corporate efficiency. They posed as an energy conglomerate, drilling into Sinnoh's three sacred lakes, Verity, Acuity, and Valor, to harvest what they called life energy. Grunts in sleek, space-age uniforms patrolled these sites, their Glameow slinking through the mist-shrouded waters, Murkrow cawing orders from the treetops, and Zubat swarms blotting out the stars at night. At Lake Verity, they captured Mesprit, the embodiment of emotion itself, stuffing its ethereal form into a containment sphere that hummed with suppressed fury. Acuity fell next, as Elf's willpower bent to their will, while Valor yielded Uxie, guardian of knowledge. These lake guardians weren't random prizes. They were keys, twisted into Cyrus's grand engine of erasure. But peel back the layers, and the environmental pretense crumbles into something infinitely more horrifying. What began as siphoning natural power swiftly transitioned from environmental goals to the literal destruction of the space-time continuum. Cyrus didn't want to reform the planet. He craved a blank canvas. At Spear Pillar atop Mount Coronet, where the fabric of dimensions thinned to a whisper, he would summon Dialga, Lord of Time, or Palkia, Master of Space. In Platinum's shadowed path, Giratina's distortion world added the final stroke. With the Lake Trio's energy fueling the Red Chain, Cyrus aimed to wrench these creation deities under his command, halting time, collapsing space, and birthing a new universe from the void. One devoid of spirit, emotion, or the messy unpredictability of life. No floods, no droughts, just flawless, emotionless perfection, engineered by his hand alone. The grunts who filled their ranks embodied this cold logic in flesh and fervour, drawn from society's fringes, disillusioned youths, outcasts craving purpose. They pledged cult-like devotion to Cyrus, chanting his name in dimly lit barracks beneath Veilstone's department store. Uniforms emblazoned with the Galactic G became badges of transcendence, their Pokémon battle-hardened through relentless drills. Saturn, Mars, Jupiter, and Charon, the commanders, enforced iron discipline, but Cyrus viewed them all as expendable cogs. Grunts charged into battles against gym leaders and trainers, without hesitation, their lives mere fuel for the machine. One overheard transmission from a captured radio log reveals a grunt's final words. For the commander's new world, it's worth it. They died by the dozens at the hands of protagonists, racing up Mount Coronet's jagged peaks, yet replacements flooded in, hypnotized by promises of a flawless eternity. Veilstone's galactic dome loomed as their nerve center, a fortress of chrome and glass, where scientists engineered energy siphons and commanders plotted in holographic chambers. Cyrus's speeches there were masterpieces of detachment, his voice a monotone blade slicing through doubt. Humanity's emotions distort truth, he'd declare, eyes fixed on projections of warping space. We will cleanse it all, even his Pokémon. Honchkrow perched like a sentinel. Weavile slicing shadows mirrored this ruthlessness, trained to strike without mercy or remorse. Yet cracks formed in this monolithic facade. Looker, the international agent, infiltrated their ranks, posing as a grunt to expose the lake's desecration. Dawn or Lucas, the young trainers, pieced together the puzzle from shattered energy cylinders and stolen intel. Cyrus's lieutenants clashed internally, Mars's fiery temper clashing with Jupiter's sly precision, but all bowed to his unyielding will. At Spear Pillar, as crimson chains bound the legends and reality shuddered, the protagonist arrived, badge in hand, Pokémon at the ready. Dialga's roar echoed like cracking epochs. Palkia's arms rent the sky, but Cyrus's perfect world slipped away, rejected by the very fabric he sought to rewrite. The commander's retreat into Distortion World left echoes of his philosophy haunting Sinnoh's winds. Galactic's remnants scattered, but their shadow lingered, a reminder that some villains don't seek power for its thrill. They pursue nothingness as the ultimate order. That chilling precision sets the stage for Chapter 11. The Three Lakes Massacre, where the true horror of those energy harvests unfolds in blood and shattered guardians. Before we dive deeper into this incredible journey, I'm curious, where in the world are you watching this from? Drop a comment below and let our global community know. And if you're finding this as mind-blowing as I am, hit that like button to help more people discover this story. Cyrus saw emotions not just as flaws, but as the very chains binding humanity to imperfection, a chaotic mess he intended to shatter by ripping apart the fabric of reality itself. To fuel that cataclysm, his first strike targeted the serene heart of Sinnoh's lakes, where ancient guardians slumbered, holding the keys to dominion over time and space. Lake Verity, nestled in the misty dawn of Twinleaf Town, shimmered under a pale morning sky, its waters so still they mirrored the clouds like forgotten dreams. Mesprit, the guardian of emotion, floated there in ethereal grace, a pink form pulsing with the raw pulse of feeling that Cyrus despised most. At precisely the same moment across the region, Galactic commanders synchronized their assault. Saturn unleashed a barrage of experimental bombs at Verity, the explosions ripping through the tranquility, sending geysers of water skyward and shattering the lake's hidden cavern. Grunts swarmed the shores, their Glameow and Murkrow cutting down any who dared interfere, while Saturn's Toxicroak dragged the weakened Mesprit into a containment sphere, her psychic cries echoing like fractured hearts. Miles north, Lake Acuity gleamed under Valor Lakefront's shadow, its icy depths cradling Uxie, the being of knowledge, whose golden eyes held the wisdom of eons. Commander Mars struck without mercy, her Purugly leading the charge as bombs detonated in perfect unison, fracturing the frozen surface into jagged shards that pierced the air. The blast's shockwave felled trees and scattered Pokémon in panic, the lake boiling with steam as Uxie thrashed against her net, her intellect probing desperately for escape. Mars laughed coldly, sealing her prize amid the acrid smoke, the Guardian's glow dimming like a snuffed lantern. And at Lake Valor, farthest east where flames once danced in legend, Azelf, embodiment of willpower, guarded the fiery core. Jupiter's assault was fiercest here, her Tangrowth ensnaring defenders, as the bombs tore open the underworld grotto, lava bubbling up to meet the surface in a hellish merger. Azelf fought valiantly, her blue aura flaring against the onslaught, but the coordinated fury overwhelmed her, Jupiter claiming the last link in Cyrus's chain of conquest. The Three Lakes Massacre unfolded in mere hours, a symphony of destruction, leaving scorched craters and poisoned waters. The Guardians captured not through brute force alone, but through Galactic's ruthless precision. With Mesprit, Uxie and Azelf now chained in the depths of Veilstone's headquarters, Cyrus commanded his scientists to extract their essence. Deep in sterile labs, humming with forbidden machinery, the process began. A harrowing ritual where the Guardian's psychic energies were siphoned, twisted, and forged into the red chain. This crimson artifact, glowing with stolen willpower, knowledge and emotion, pulsed like a vein of pure control, designed to bind even the mightiest of legends. No mercy was shown. The lake's protectors hung suspended in agony, their powers milked until the chain solidified, a profane relic born from their suffering. Armed with this abomination, Cyrus ascended to the spear pillar mount, Coronet's shattered summit, where the world's pillars pierced the heavens. Winds howled through jagged spires as he initiated the ritual under a storm-lashed sky, the red chain unfurling like serpents to summon Dialga and Palkia from their dimensional prisons. Dialga, the steel-clad sovereign of time, emerged first, its raw warping seconds into echoes. Palkia followed, pearl-armored master of space, its presence folding distances into knots. Cyrus stood unmoved amid the chaos, his plan unfolding, to bend these titans to his will, erasing the flawed universe in a void of nothingness, then rewriting it in his image, a sterile paradise devoid of spirit, emotion, or the human taint he loathed. Grunts formed a perimeter against encroaching heroes, their Zubat swarms blotting the stars, but the pillar trembled as the legends strained against their bonds, reality fraying at the edges. Cyrus's voice cut through the tempest, declaring his emotionless utopia within reach, the chains glow binding Dialga and Palkia in a vortex of unraveling existence. Yet as the ritual peaked, a rift yawned in the fabric of all things, hinting at forces beyond even Cyrus's calculations. What lurked in that twisting abyss would upend everything, pulling the battle into Chapter 12. The distortion world, where shadows twist and no law holds sway. At the summit of Spear Pillar, where the veil between dimensions thins to a whisper, Cyrus completes his ritual. The red chain pulses with stolen life from the late Guardians, tethering Dialga and Palkia in a storm of clashing energies, time warping into loops, space folding like crumbled paper. Cyrus, his face a mask of cold certainty, chants the words to erase the chaos of emotion, to birth a perfect spiritless void. But the mountain trembles not from his command, but from something deeper, something rejected. A rift tears open, not in the fabric of reality, but in its shadow. Giratina erupts from the distortion world, its ghostly wings shredding the air, red eyes blazing with otherworldly fury. This renegade Pokémon, guardian of the reverse realm, senses the imbalance Cyrus has wrought. Dialga and Palkia roar in confusion, their powers turning against the chain that binds them, but it's Giratina that strikes true. With a gravitational pulse that inverts the pillar stone, it drags Cyrus toward the fracture, his logical empire crumbling in an instant. You can almost feel the shift as Cyrus's reality collapses. The man who despised the filth of human spirit, who orchestrated lakes bombed and guardians caged, now confronts the absurdity of his own making. His calculations fail. Emotions he denied surge unbidden rage, perhaps even fear, as Giratina's domain swallows him whole. The intervention isn't mere wrath, it's cosmic justice, the universe's antimatter response to his sterile dream. And then, the journey begins into the reverse world, that twisted mirror where the laws of physics and morality do not apply. Picture platforms floating in defiance of gravity, jagged crystals defying straight lines, the ground curving upward into endless sky. Time flows backward in pockets. Colors bleed into negatives, blues turning sickly yellow, shadows stretching like living ink. Pokémon here move through portals that blink in and out, their cries echoing in reversed tones, haunting and hollow. It's a place of antimatter, born from the Big Bang's rejected half, where Giratina reigns in eternal isolation, punishing those who disturb the balance. Our hero, alongside Cynthia, steps through the rift, pulled by the same force that claimed Cyrus. The air thickens with disorientation. Footsteps leave trails of inverted footprints, leading nowhere. Moral compacts shatter too. No right or wrong, just raw opposition. Cyrus wanders these warped expanses, his galactic uniform frayed, commander no more. He battles shadows of his own ambitions. Glameow's purrs twisted into snarls, his Pokémon warped by the realm's logic. Deeper in, the distortion world's core pulses like a fractured heart. Gravity flips without warning, sending you tumbling upward into abyssal voids. Structures assemble themselves from nothingness, only to dissolve into prismatic dust. Giratina's silhouette looms across impossible distances, a reminder that this isn't punishment by whim, but by nature's inverted law. Cyrus presses on, driven by remnants of his zeal, forging paths across levitating ruins, confronting illusions of his perfect world. Empty, yes, but crumbling under its own weightless perfection, he reaches a nexus, a gravitational anchor where platforms spiral in defiance of entropy. There, Giratina manifests fully, its body a mass of voids and spines, challenging him to prove his emotionless purity. Cyrus commands his team, but the reverse world's rules corrupt their moves. Shadow Claw phases through air, Psychic bends back on itself, victory slips like sand, his logic so prized unravels in paradoxes he can't compute. In the end, the fate of Cyrus seals itself, a man trapped in a void of his own making. Giratina repels him not to death, but to perpetual exile, the portal to the human world sealing behind. He remains in that antimatter limbo, Galactic's dream realized in nightmare form. No spirits to taint it, but no purpose either. Whispers persist of his voice, echoing through distortions, a faint signal from Veilstone's ruins. But he wanders alone, the architect of nothingness, forever reversed. As the hero escapes with Cynthia, restoring balance at Spear Pillar, Team Galactic fractures, admins scattering, grunts disillusioned. Cyrus's cold logic meets its perfect counterpoint, leaving Cinna scarred but intact. But the story of villainy doesn't end in isolation. Up next in Chapter 13, The Liberation of Unova, we uncover how a king's pawn becomes a liberator, and a shadowed triad pulls strings toward total domination. Will true freedom rise, or is it just another chain in disguise? As the echoes of Giratina's reverse world finally settled, swallowing Cyrus and his emotionless dream into oblivion, the Pokémon world caught its breath, only to face a peril unlike any before. That didn't shatter reality with legends or flood continents, but whispered doubts into the hearts of every trainer who ever called a Pokémon their partner. Unova stretched out like a vast, modern canvas, its skyscrapers piercing cloudy skies, and its trainers bustling with the everyday rhythm of battles and bonds. Yet beneath this veneer of progress simmered Team Plasma, a force that dared to question the very foundation of your journey. They marched through cities draped in bold white uniforms, emblazoned with a stylized P, preaching a gospel that flipped the script on villainy itself. No shadowy thefts or cataclysmic rituals here. Their rallying cry was liberation, a moral crusade framed through the lens of animal rights, insisting that Pokémon suffered in silence under human thumbs. Grunts paraded captured Pokémon high on their shoulders, only to release them in dramatic spectacles, at the feet of awestruck crowds, televisions broadcasting their sermons far and wide. It was theatre at its most insidious, turning public sympathy into a weapon sharper than any Pokeball. You remember those early encounters, don't you? Plasma agents swarming the streets of Accumula Town, their leader's voice booming from a castle-like platform. Humans and Pokémon should live apart, he thundered, his words laced with a fervour that made you pause mid-stride. They weren't stealing for profit like Rocket, or twisting nature like Aqua and Magma. Positioned themselves as saviours, exposing the cruelty of battles, the confinement of balls, the exploitation hidden in every gym badge. Their philosophy pierced deep, forcing you to confront the chains you carried on your belt. Were your Pokémon truly friends or prisoners in a gilded cage? Plasma didn't just attack bases, they assaulted ideals, planting seeds of guilt that bloomed into nationwide unrest. At the heart of this movement stood N, the so-called king of Team Plasma, a figure both tragic and terrifying. Raised in isolation by Ghetsis among the shadows of his castle, surrounded only by Pokémon whose voices he alone could hear, N grew into a young man with emerald eyes that burned with unshakable conviction. He heard their cries of pain, felt their longing for freedom, and believed with every fibre of his being that he was their redeemer. To N, trainers were tyrants, battles were abuse, and his destiny was to shatter those bonds forever. He wandered Unova's wilderness, befriending wild Pokémon who flocked to him like pilgrims, their trust absolute because he never caged them, only listened. N's purity made him the perfect puppet king, enthroned by Plasma's machinations yet utterly sincere in his quest. Picture him atop Dragon Spiral Tower, the wind howling through ancient ruins as Zekrom descended, its thunderous form a mirror to his ideals of truth and ideals. In your black version path, you claimed the deep black dragon as his own, vowing to create a utopia where Pokémon roamed free from human greed. White version flipped the script with Resurgence, the vast white blaze embodying truth over ideals. Either way, N's speeches cut like thunderbolts. During your championship clash at the Pokémon League, people string up pointless laws to live by and keep insisting that mankind is controlled by these laws. It's madness, he'd declare, his voice echoing in the vast stadium as cameras captured every word. Your own Pokémon, loyal through countless trials, suddenly seemed complicit in his eyes. And for a moment, his words hung heavy, making you wonder if victory meant perpetuating the cycle he despised. Those philosophical debates wove through every encounter, challenging your role as a Pokémon trainer at its core. From the tubular halls of the cold storage, where Plasma hoarded liberated Pokémon in secret pens, to the neon glow of Nimbasa City's amusement park, where they disrupted battles with moral interrogations. They forced introspection. Why do you battle? N would ask, his Zora shifting forms like his own fractured worldview. Grunts echoed him in Castelia's alleys. Your Pokémon look miserable. Release them. Even Looker, the international agent pursuing them, grappled with their rhetoric, his fedora shadowing eyes filled with doubt. Plasma's king didn't seek conquest through force. He aimed for willing surrender, convincing the world, and perhaps you, that trainers were the true monsters. Their campaign escalated to the heart of Unova's power structures. They infiltrated the Pokémon League itself, with N emerging victorious in the tournament, claiming the title before your final showdown. Tubeline Bridge became a gauntlet of their ideals. The Shadow Triad, Ghetsis' enigmatic enforcers, blocking paths with psychic barriers and taunting questions. At N's castle, rising like a fortress from Route 13 sands, the air thickened with tension. Purified white stone walls loomed, banners fluttering as hundreds of grunts chanted for separation. Inside, balls twisted with captured legendaries, their energies fueling N's vision. You stormed those depths, battling admins like the cold strategist Orre, whose tech amplified Pokemon's hidden strengths or weaknesses, blurring lines between ally and experiment. Zekrom or Reshiram roared to life in the throne room, N astride his dragon as ideals clashed in a storm of black lightning or white fire. His belief never wavered. He was saving Pokémon from suffering, freeing them from the painful relationships trainers inflicted. Defeat cracked his facade, but not his heart, vanished with his legendary, leaving Unova forever changed. His words lingering like fog over Pinwheel Forest. Plasma scattered, their liberation a hollow echo, yet the debates they ignited rippled outward. Trainers everywhere second-guessed their bonds, and the region pondered if freedom truly meant solitude. But shadows deeper than N's isolation stirred within Plasma's ranks, manipulations that turned his noble heart into a tool for tyranny. In Chapter 14, the Ghetsis revelation, you'll finally meet the puppeteer who twisted liberation into domination. His symphony of deceit poised to crescendo in ways that will chill even the warmest dreams. What horrors did he unleash once the king's crown slipped? But N's heartfelt crusade was never his own design. It was the meticulously woven illusion of a man who saw Pokémon not as equals, but as instruments of absolute dominion. Ghetsis Harmonia Gropius, the shadowy architect of Team Plasma, had spent years crafting this deception, positioning his adopted son as the flawless figurehead for a revolution that would serve only his ambitions. From the moment N entered the world, Ghetsis isolated him in the crumbling ruins of a forgotten castle, far from the clamour of human society. No children his age, no playgrounds echoing with laughter, just the silent companionship of Pokémon rescued from what Ghetsis called cruel trainers. These creatures became N's family, his teachers, whispering truths shaped by Ghetsis' relentless conditioning. He taught the boy to hear their voices, to feel their pain as if it were his own, but always framing humans as the monsters, selfish thieves who enslaved the innocent. Day after day, Ghetsis would parade abused Pokémon before N, their scars a living testament to his narrative, grooming the child into a vessel of unyielding ideology. N grew believing he was destined for greatness, a king to free all Pokémon, blind to the fact that his father had engineered every tear, every bond, every revelation. It was psychological mastery, turning innocence into zealotry, a puppet strung so tightly that even N's empathy became a weapon. As Unova's regions fell under Plasma's sway, their operations escalated from liberating Pokémon at sword point to seizing castles and broadcasting manifestos that swayed the masses. Castelia City's skyline darkened with their banners, and trainers watched helplessly as their partners were freed into hidden vans. Yet cracks began to show when the player and rivals confronted N at key strongholds, like the Pokémon League itself, where ideals clashed against reality. N's purity shone through his battles, his team a symphony of loyalty forged in isolation, but Ghetsis lurked in the shadows, his 7 sages, masters of deception like Gorm, Rud and Bronius, executing the grander scheme. Then came the climax at the Unova League, the pinnacle of N's dream and the shattering of it. With the champion's title in sight, N ascended to N's castle, a fortress rising like a black spire amid the league's grandeur. There, in a ritual of thunderous power, he summoned the legendary dragons, Zekrom, the colossal black worm crackling with ideals incarnate, and Reshiram, the radiant white beast embodying truth. Their roars shook the earth, wings blotting out the sun as they bowed to their king, symbols of a world divided and remade. The crowd gasped, the air thick with ozone and awe, as N declared victory for Pokémon kind, his voice carrying the weight of a lifetime's grooming. But in that electric moment, the mask fell. Ghetsis stepped forward, his emerald eye glinting with malice beneath the ornate headdress, discarding the pretense of liberation. His true plan unfurled like a venomous bloom. In this liberated world, every human would be stripped of their Pokémon, left powerless and broken, while he alone, Ghetsis, would command them all. No sharing of ideals, no kingly throne for N. Just one man, enthroned in solitude atop a Pokémon empire, bending Zekrom and Reshiram to his will for unchallenged conquest. N staggered, betrayed, his childhood's lies crumbling as Ghetsis laughed, the sages revealing their hand, years of feigned support masking ruthless ambition. The dragons turned, the league trembled, and Unova teetered on the brink of tyranny. The betrayal rippled outward, fracturing Plasma's ranks. Some grunts touched by N's sincerity defected, whispering doubts in the shadows of Driftveil or Isirus. Rud, the sage of compassion, broke free first, aiding the heroes with intel from his purloin. Yet Ghetsis' grip held firm, his shadow triad, elusive ninjas cloaked in darkness, ensuring loyalty through fear. Battles ensued across the league's Colosseum floors, Hydreigon clashing against heroes' teams, the air humming with hyper beams and dragon pulses. N, heartbroken, vanished with Zekrom or Reshiram depending on the path, his ideals tested but unbroken. Ghetsis' downfall came swiftly after, his monstrous army repelled at the castle's peak, where the true hero faced him in a duel of wills. His legendary fell, his plans in ruins, but the scars lingered, Unova forever marked by the question of freedom's cost. Plasma scattered, their ideals twisted into something profane. That fracture deepened in the icy shadows awaiting us next in Chapter 15, the frozen wasteland of Black 2 and White 2, where remnants of Plasma unleash a nightmare from the frozen north that makes Ghetsis' betrayal look like mere prelude. 2 years have passed since Ghetsis' grand deception crumbled at N's castle, his iron grip on Unova shattered by the truth of his tyranny. Yet the embers of Team Plasma refused to die. From the shadows, a new architect emerged, reshaping the shattered organization into something far more lethal. A high-tech paramilitary force under the brilliant yet enigmatic Orre, the scientist whose white coat concealed a mind obsessed with control through innovation, took the reins after the old guard's failure, no longer content with philosophical rants about liberation. Plasma's remnants poured their resources into cutting-edge weaponry and biomechanical enhancements. Grunts traded tattered cloaks for sleek, armored suits humming with energy fields, their Pokémon fitted with neural amplifiers that turned obedience into ruthless precision. Chorus's doctrine was simple. True dominance required not just power, but the science to wield it without flaw. Laboratory hidden in the giant chasm buzzed day and night, forging devices that bridged flesh and machine, Pokémon and plasma energy alike. This was no ragtag cult anymore. It was a mechanized army, drilled in urban assault tactics, their dropships slicing through Unova's skies like predatory shadows. You can almost hear the low thrum of engines as the plasma frigate makes its thunderous debut, a colossal airship blotting out the sun over Oplucid City. This behemoth, A floating fortress of riveted steel and glowing reactors wasn't just transport, it was a weapon of environmental terror. Colress commanded its deployment with clinical detachment, hovering the frigate above the bustling metropolis, its underbelly vents unleashing a torrent of hyper-chilled plasma gas. Cryogonal swarms, supercharged by onboard generators, spiraled downward in a blizzard of razor-sharp ice, their hexagonal bodies pulsing with unnatural blue light. Within minutes, Opelucid's towering skyscrapers, subbles of Unova's progress, froze solid, streets transforming into treacherous sheets of permafrost, where panicked citizens slipped and shattered like glass. The air turned to knives, breath visible in ragged clouds, as plasma forces repelled from the frigate, securing the frozen wasteland as their forward base. Iris, the Dragon Master and new champion, watched in horror from Dragon Spiral Tower, her city entombed in eternal winter, a stark warning to the region. Resistance would mean annihilation by frost. Deeper in the giant chasm, where Kyurem slumbered in icy isolation, Colress's machinations reached their zenith. This ancient dragon, the boundary Pokémon, embodiment of emptiness and boundlessness, became the linchpin of Plasma's resurgence. Ghetsis, lurking in the wings, hungered for its raw might, but Colress provided the key, the DNA splicer, a handheld marvel splicing genetic helices like threads in a loom. First came the capture of Zekrom or Reshiram, the hero's dragons left weakened from prior battles, their essences harvested in cryogenic stasis. Under the chasm's cavernous dome, lit by flickering auroras of energy, Kyurem's colossal form stirred, the splicer hummed to life, beams lancing into its crystalline hide, merging tails and powers in a cataclysmic fusion. Black Kyurem roared into existence on the white path, its turbine tail fusing with Zekrom's thunder, body swelling with jet-black armor and electric fury. White Kyurem followed suit, crystalline whites merging with Reshiram's flames, a blazing behemoth of frozen fire. The ground quaked, ice cracking like thunder, as this abomination took flight, its shadow alone enough to chill blood to sludge. But fusion was merely the spark. It ignited Ghetsis' descent into total madness. The man who once cloaked his ambition in ideals now shed all pretense, his emerald eye gleaming with unhinged zeal atop the plasma frigate's bridge. The world will kneel, he bellowed, voice echoing through frozen Opelucid's ruins, as he unleashed his perfected Kyurem hybrid on the champion. Gone was the silver-tongued manipulator. In his place stood a raving despot, monologuing about his divine right to rule a Pokémon-less humanity, his shadow triad enforcers chanting loyalty amid the howling gales. Kyurem's glaciate swept armies aside, freeze shock and ice burn rending steel and stone, while Ghetsis cackled from his perch, plotting conquest from the frozen throne of Opelucid, his sanity frayed like hoarfrost in the wind. Paranoid whispers to his Galactic, delusions of godhood fused with Kyurem's void, until the protagonist breached the frigate's core, DNA splicer in hand, forcing the reversal amid shattering ice and defiant roars. In the aftermath, as Kyurem reverted and Ghetsis fled into obscurity, ranting vows of vengeance from the shadows, Unova thawed but bore the scars of Plasma's icy ambition forever. Colress vanished into legend, his tech scattered like forgotten blueprints, leaving only whispers of what unchecked science might unleash next. Drift deeper now, as we turn to Chapter 16, the elegance of Team Flare, where a villain's pursuit of beauty unleashes a weapon more devastating than any freeze or fusion. Stay with me to uncover its horrifying grace. As the frost finally recedes from Opelucid City's streets, and Team Plasma's colossal frigate slips into the shadows of defeat, the winds of villainy carry us far from Unova's fractured ideals to the sun-drenched boulevards of Kalos. Here, in a land where every cafe corner gleams with polished marble, and every fountain whispers of ancient nobility, a new threat emerges not from the chill of technology or the fervour of false liberation, but from the razor-sharp edge of refined perfection. Team Flare doesn't lurk in warehouses or hideouts. They command the spotlight, their operatives striding through Lumio City in outfits of crimson and white that turn heads and spark whispers among the elite. Lysandre, the visionary at their helm, isn't your typical shadowed boss cloaked in rage or greed. A billionaire inventor, philanthropist on the surface, he pours his fortune into art galleries and high-fashion salons, his mane of fiery red hair framing a face that could grace magazine covers. But beneath that charismatic exterior, burns an unyielding obsession with beauty. A beauty he sees slipping away in a world choked by overpopulation, where resources dwindle like fading sunlight and humanity's endless sprawl breeds nothing but ugliness. He gazes out over the throngs of chaos, the markets overflowing with desperate faces, the skies hazy from too many factories belching smoke, and declares it all unworthy. Pokémon, in his eyes, deserve a canvas unmarred by this decay, a paradise where only the exquisite endure. This philosophy doesn't hide in manifestos. It flaunts itself in the heart of Lumiose, at the Flair Café, a sanctuary perched atop the Prism Tower, where the air smells of espresso and exclusivity. Membership isn't bought with mere coins. 1 million Poke Dollars just to sip their coffee, ensuring only the world's most privileged can even glimpse the inner sanctum. Grunts pose as stylish servers, their hounder pups lounging at booted feet, while holographic projectors flicker with Lysandre's speeches on preserving elegance. It's no accident. This is recruitment wrapped in luxury, drawing in those who already believe the masses are a blight, priming them for a cause that promises to sculpt the world anew. What begins as aesthetic disdain sharpens into something far more ruthless, a chilling pivot toward Malthusian villainy, where population control isn't a debate but a divine mandate. Lysandre envisions culling the herd, not through crude bombs or frigate assaults, but with precision, erasing the unworthy to let beauty flourish unchecked. His scientists, clad in those iconic flared coats, scour ruins for ancient Kalosian tech, their growlith howling through Geosenge Valley labs. Unlike Plasma's moral posturing or Galactic's cosmic void, Flair's elegance masks a scalpel's cut. Fewer people, infinite resources, a eternal spring for the select few and their Pokémon. Admins like Aliana, with her predatory salazzle gaze, and Celosia, ever the sharp-tongued researcher, orchestrate diversions, raids on power plants, abductions of key scientists, all while Lysandre broadcasts from his private jet, voice smooth as silk over every screen in Kalos. The grunts, far from disposable thugs, carry an air of superiority, their skrelp evolving into dragulls that poison the unworthy from afar. Even their vehicles, sleek mechas that unfold like origami nightmares, embody this fusion of style and slaughter. Deep in the Frost Cavern, they hunt Abermasnow for energy cores. In the Pokémon Village, they disrupt hidden sanctuaries, all threads weaving toward Lysandre's grand design. He confides in confidants like the sly Mabel and the brute Malva, his words dripping with poetic venom. A world reborn, stripped of clutter, where every petal unfurls without trampling. But cracks appear, whispers of dissent from those who see the cafe's exclusivity as a gilded cage, and heroes rising from Shalor City's gyms, drawn by the scent of impending catastrophe. As Team Flair's red glow bathes the night sky, Lysandre activates the first prototype, a beam of otherworldly light that hints at horrors yet to come. What is this ultimate weapon, buried in Kalos's cradle of life, and how will it force the world to kneel before beauty's blade? You'll find out in Chapter 17. The ultimate weapon. Lysandre's dream of a beautiful world reserved for the elite demanded more than just a selective cafe membership that cost a fortune. It called for total erasure of the ugliness he despised, the teeming masses, the endless cycle of conflict and decay, and so he turned to a relic from Kalos's darkest past, a device so cataclysmic it had once nearly ended all life on the region. 3,000 years ago, the ancient kingdoms of Kalos waged a war that scorched the earth and claimed countless souls. At its heart was a king named AZ, a man whose grief would forge the ultimate instrument of destruction. His beloved Floette, a tiny fairy Pokémon that had saved his life in battle, vanished amid the chaos, presumed lost forever. Consumed by sorrow, Az poured his kingdom's vast resources into a forbidden creation, a towering machine designed to bring eternal life to Pokémon and end the bloodshed. But immortality came at a horrifying price. He captured one of the life-giving legends, either the Radiant Xerneas, embodiment of vitality and blooming forests, or the somber Yveltal, harbinger of decay and quieting death. Their boundless life force became the weapon's core, siphoned endlessly to fuel beams of pure annihilation. Picture the machine's first firing, a colossal cannon rising from the earth, like a skeletal arm from a forgotten grave. Its chamber hummed with stolen essence, glowing with an unnatural light that twisted the air around it. When activated, it unleashed waves of energy, that drained the life from armies on both sides, leaving fields of hollowed husks where soldiers and Pokémon once stood. The war halted overnight, not through peace, but through slaughter on a scale that scarred the land eternally. Azid himself survived, granted accidental immortality by the overflow of life energy, his body preserved in a state of unending torment. He wandered the ages, searching for his lost Floette. His once noble heart hardened into isolation. The weapon was sealed away, buried deep beneath what would become Resurgence Town. Its existence whispered only in forbidden scrolls and ruins etched with warnings. Millennia passed, and Lysandre, with his network of scientists and archaeologists, funded by Team Flare's wealth, unearthed this nightmare. He saw not horror but salvation. The ultimate weapon, he declared, could purge the world's overpopulation, leaving only the beautiful and worthy. Team Flare's admins, Aliana with her fierce Mightyana pack, Mabel commanding her ice-hardened Weevil, Celosia unleashing her eerie Malamar illusions, and Bryony hacking through digital defenses, rallied to prepare it. They scoured Kalos for Zygarde's scattered cells too, the Order Pokémon whose energy would amplify the cannon's power, turning it into a doomsday device capable of reshaping reality itself. Deep in the Prism Tower, Lysandre monologued his vision to the captured Xerneas and Yveltal, their forms chained in stasis pods, their life force already trickling into prototype chambers. He spoke of humanity's flaws, the beauty of sacrifice for perfection. Grunts in their pristine red and black uniforms patrolled the excavation sites, holographic projectors displaying Flare's emblem, a stylized flower blooming from flames. But cracks formed in the hierarchy. Lysandre's obsession blinded him to dissent. Even his loyal scientists questioned the morality of repeating Azid's sin. As the player delved into Lysandre's cafe-fronted headquarters, uncovering data logs on Azid's lost kingdom, ruins at Lumiose Badlands, murals depicting the war's horrors, the true scale emerged. The weapon wasn't just a cannon, it was a network of ancient towers across Kalos, synchronized to fire in unison, each drawing from the legend's essence to blanket the region in death rays. Lysandre's plan hinged on selecting targets. Cities swollen with Yugli life spared only for his chosen few. Tension built to the final countdown in Resurgence Town, where the massive cannon pierced the sky like a jagged spine. Flare's elite gathered on its platform, wind whipping their coats as the activation sequence began. Lysandre stood at the controls, his voice booming over speakers. This is the dawn of beauty eternal. Alarms blared, energy surging through conduits veined with glowing life force. But betrayal struck from within. Azid himself appeared, an ancient wanderer in ornate armor. His Floette finally returned after centuries, its fairy glow piercing the gloom. He confronted Lysandre, revealing the weapon's true legacy, not salvation, but endless regret. In that moment, the self-destruction of the Flare hierarchy unfolded. Admins turned on each other in panic, their Pokémon clashing amid the rumbling machinery. Lysandre, unyielding, fired the weapon prematurely, its beam scorching the battlefield but missing its full potential. The player, with Azid's aid and the legends breaking free, shattered the core. Explosions rippled through the structure, claiming grunts and admins alike, in cascades of fire and debris. Lysandre vanished into the inferno, his dream reduced to ashes, while Azid walked away, his immortality a curse unbroken. The echoes of that cataclysm linger in Kalos's soil, a reminder that some weapons born from love turn to rage, defy even the noblest intentions. But across the seas, in the shadowed region of Orre, another breed of villainy awaited, one involving Pokémon stripped of their very souls. Coming up next in Chapter 18, the Shadow Pokémon of Orre. While the life force of Xerneas and Yveltal fueled Azid's nightmare across 3,000 years in Kalos, a far more insidious violation awaited in the dusty badlands of Orre, where human ambition didn't just harness legendary power. It shattered the unbreakable trust between trainer and Pokémon. In this remote region, far from the bustling leagues of Kanto or Unova, a criminal syndicate known as Team Cypher emerged from the shadows of spin-off tales, their labs hidden in scorched deserts and forgotten citadels. These weren't mere thieves or eco-fanatics. Cypher's scientists delved into the essence of Pokémon bonds, developing a process to close their hearts entirely. Imagine a Pokémon's spirit, that radiant core of emotion and loyalty, methodically suppressed through shadowy machines and experimental serums. The result? Shadow Pokémon. Ferocious, mindless warriors stripped of joy, fear or love, their eyes glowing with an unnatural purple haze, driven only by rage and command. Cypher's rise began in Pokémon Colosseum, under the iron fist of their leader, Evis, a hulking figure who masqueraded as the mayor of Phoenix City, that shimmering oasis of white spires masking underground depravity. From there, they flooded Orre with these abominations, snatching wild Pokémon and even beloved partners from unsuspecting trainers. A shadow Pokémon doesn't battle for glory or friendship. It fights like a machine, its attacks amplified by pent-up fury, but vulnerable to glimpses of its former self. Flashes of aura that dedicated purifiers could exploit in Colosseum arenas, grinding away the corruption through relentless, heartfelt combat. Cypher reveled in this perversion, shipping their creations worldwide, turning the noble art of training into a marketplace for soulless killers. But their masterpiece, the pinnacle of this heart-closing horror, was XD001, Shadow Lugia, a legendary psychic dragon warped into the ultimate weapon, captured from the whirlpool depths of Whirl Islands and dragged to Cypher's floating fortress, the XD Cradle. Lugia endured agonizing reconfiguration, its pristine silver wings darkened, its psychic roars twisted into psychic shrieks that shattered minds. This wasn't mere capture. It was the corruption of the natural bond at its deepest level. Lugia, guardian of the seas, symbol of pure oceanic harmony, reduced to a hovering terror, its shadow aura pulsing like a heartbeat stolen away. Pilots trembled under its gaze, for XD01 could sense betrayal, lashing out with aeroblasts laced in dark energy. Only a young snagmaster named Michael, armed with a prototype snag machine, dared infiltrate the cradle's bowels, battling through whiffs of shadowed horrors to reclaim the beast and begin its long purification. Lurking in Cypher's orbit were their opportunistic rivals, Team Snagim, a band of rugged outlaws led by the brutish Gonzap from their mountaintop hideout. These weren't ideologues. They were specialists in the raw theft of partner Pokémon, wielding illegal snag machines, reverse-engineered tech that plucked balls right from a trainer's belt mid-battle. Snagan grunts, clad in black leather and shades, prowled Pyrite Town's gritty Colosseum, snatching prized companions to sell on the black market or hand off to Cypher for shadowing. Their betrayal came swiftly. Gonzap tried to double-cross the heroes by selling out Cypher's secrets for a bigger cut, but it only hastened their downfall. In the chaos of X-Day, Gale of Darkness, Snagham's greed clashed with Cypher's fanaticism, leaving both fractured amid Orre's endless dunes. Cypher's endgame unraveled in their Realgam Tower lair, where Elder Greevil, Evis's successor, unleashed hordes of perfected shadows, including XD001's siblings, the Shadow Togepi swarm, innocent forms twisted into explosive nightmares. The air thickened with their guttural cries, the ground trembling under stampedes of corrupted beasts. Yet purification stations dotted the region like beacons of hope, where time and empathy slowly reopened those sealed hearts, revealing the tragedy beneath. Pokémon yearning to reconnect, their bonds not destroyed, but merely locked away. You can almost feel the desert wind carrying whispers of those lost loyalties, the faint glow of a purifying aura piercing the purple void. As Orre's shadows fade into reclaimed light, the Ranger crises of Almia beckon, with their own captures and conquests. Stick around for Chapter 19, the Go Rock Squad and the Almia Crisis, where rock and roll rebellion threatens an entire region's wild heart. While the shadowed hearts of Orre's Pokémon were sealed away in eternal darkness by Cypher's cruel experiments, the Pokémon Ranger series introduced a far more insidious form of villainy that perverted a sacred tool of harmony itself. In these spin-off adventures, Rangers don't battle or weaken Pokémon to catch them. They wield the Capture Styler, a disc-firing device that loops colourful energy rings around wild Pokémon, temporarily befriending them through rhythm and trust. It's a mechanic born from pure synergy, letting you borrow a Pokémon's power without stealing its freedom. But the villains here, they hijack that very styler, twisting it into a weapon of domination, capturing Pokémon not for fleeting teamwork, but for permanent subjugation. The first to abuse this power emerged in the Fjord region, under the banner of the Go Rock Squad. Picture a rock band gone rogue, flashy costumes, electric guitars slung over shoulders, and a leader named Gorda, who styled himself as the ultimate frontman. These weren't your typical grunts in black uniforms. They rocked out on stage while plotting chaos, using souped-up styler copies to snare legendary beasts. Raiku's thunderous lightning, Entei's volcanic fury, Suicune's crystalline purity. They targeted the roaming trio of the Johto legends, dragging them into captivity for their own twisted concerts of control. Gorda's crew set up bases in abandoned quarries and seaside cliffs, their music masking the hum of malfunctioning stylers that forced Pokémon into unnatural obedience. Rangers like you had to infiltrate their gigs, dodging spotlights and bass drops, breaking the beasts free one resonant pulse at a time. It was villainy with a beat, blending showmanship and theft, in a way that made every encounter feel like crashing an apocalypse concert. But Fiore's rockstars paled against the shadow that fell over the entire Almia region in Pokémon Ranger. Shadows of Almia. Here, Team Dim Sun rose like a toxic eclipse, their name evoking the dimming light of a controlled world. Led by the enigmatic Blake Hall, they didn't just steal Pokémon. They sought to enslave every last one in Almia, bending the minds of thousands to their will. Their perversion of the capture styler was diabolical. Mass-produced Minstulas, smaller and deadlier, deployed by an army of cloaked operatives who blanketed cities and wilds alike. Imagine Haruba Village, choked in perpetual twilight, its skies filled with airborne styler drones, pulsing black energy. Pokémon from Pidgey to legendary Regigigas, turning glassy-eyed and marching in lockstep. Dim Sun's headquarters loomed in the volcanic badlands of Volcano Cave, a fortress of glowing screens monitoring their growing horde. Blake's vision was total regional dominance, a Pokémon police state where humans ruled through unbreakable psychic chains. They infiltrated the Ranger School on Almia's northeastern coast, corrupting students and faculty, even hijacking the school's own styler tech to amplify their signals. The air hummed with the low whine of overcharged rings, and beaches once teeming with playful Lapras became staging grounds for mind-wiped armies. You, as a fresh Ranger recruit, pieced together the conspiracy, from polluted waters in Puel Sea to the poisoned winds of Boyland, uncovering how Dim Sun siphoned energy from captured Pokémon to power their ultimate device. The golden armor controlling Gigaramo units, Blake himself, revealed in a climactic showdown atop Haruba's highest spire, embodied cold calculation, his styler an extension of his fractured ambition. Breaking their hold meant not just freeing individuals, but shattering a web of control that threatened to make Almia a silent, obedient wasteland. The Ranger Saga's threats escalated even further in Guardian Signs, where the Pokémon Pinchers clawed their way into the skies. This crew, led by the bombastic Edward and his scheming sister Purple, operated from the massive airship Starship, a behemoth drifting above Oblivia's islands like a predatory cloud. Their obsession, the legendary birds, Articuno's icy gales, Zapdos's electric storms, Moltres' blazing wing. Pinchers didn't settle for ground assaults. They pursued these sky sovereigns in high-altitude dogfights, deploying styler-armed jets and gliders to lasso them mid-flight. Edward's laughter echoed over crackling radios as his grunts repelled from hovering dreadnoughts, rings slicing through hurricane winds to ensnare the birds for his collection. These aerial hunts painted Oblivia's horizons with chaos, freezing tempests over Ice Temple, thunder-racked pursuits near Lightning Temple, fiery spirals above Fire Temple. The Pincher's tech was cutting-edge villainy. Quasar fossils revived as monstrous weapons, styler gauntlets firing from cockpits, all coordinated from the starship's bridge, where Edward plotted world-conquering spectacles. Purple's cunning added layers, her disguises infiltrating Ranger unions, while the ship rained capture pods on unsuspecting flocks below. Rangers countered with their own aerial maneuvers, borrowing Staraptor wings or Altaria clouds to chase the Pinchers through stratospheric battles, rings clashing in bursts of light against the endless blue. It was a villainy unbound by Earth, forever chasing the untamable heights. These Ranger antagonists stand apart in Pokémon lore, their crimes hinging on the betrayal of partnership itself. The styler, symbol of fleeting alliance, reforged into chains of eternity. From Fiore's rhythmic heists to Almia's mind-blanket tyranny and Oblivia's skyborne kidnappings, they remind us how fragile trust can be when technology tempts the ruthless. As these aerial shadows fade into the annals, whispers emerge of outlaws lurking in mysterious dungeons, where a skunk-tailed brute leads a band of relentless harassers with no human master in sight. Next, Chapter 20. The Mystery Dungeon Outlaws, where the chaos turns inward and feral. I hope you're as amazed by this as I am. If you want to stay updated on more content like this, make sure to subscribe and join our community of curious minds. Trust me, what's coming next will challenge everything you thought you knew. While the ranger squads like Team Dim Sun schemed to enslave every Pokémon in Almia through their corrupted capture stylers, the Mystery Dungeon series takes that darkness even further, stripping away humans entirely and letting Pokémon turn on each other in worlds built from their own fears and ambitions. In these games, you awaken as a Pokémon yourself, thrust into guilds and dungeons where survival hinges on trust among your kind and betrayal lurks in every shadow. Picture the fog-shrouded streets of Treasure Town, where the air hangs heavy with the stench of damp stone and unwashed fur. Here, villainy emerges not from some distant human overlord, but from the raw, selfish greed pulsing through a band of outlaws known as Team Skull. Led by the hulking Skuntank, his oily black hide gleaming under the dim lanterns. They prowl the night with his cronies, a wheezing coughing belching toxic fumes that choke the alleys, and a Zubat whose supersonic shrieks pierce the quiet, scouting for easy marks. These aren't ideologues plotting world domination. They're petty thugs driven by base desires, shaking down merchants for their hard-earned poké, stealing supplies from weary explorers fresh from the dungeons. Skuntank's gravelly voice echoes through the stalls as he demands tribute, his eyes narrowed in that predatory squint, while coughing hovers lazily, poisoning the air to cow any resistance, and Zubat darts in for the snatch. Their greed knows no bounds. They harass the player and partner relentlessly, framing them for crimes they didn't commit, all to hoard wealth in their dingy hideout atop the cliffs. It's villainy from a Pokémon's perspective, unfiltered and brutal, where the strong prey on the weak not for glory, but for the simple thrill of filling their bellies and lining their nests. But Team Skull's small-time extortion pales against the cataclysm brewing in the series' darkest corners. Deep in the fabric of time itself, an existential threat uncoils. Darkrai, the nightmare Pokémon, whose shadowy tendrils unravel reality from the inside out. In Explorers of Time and Darkness, the world teeters on the brink as the temporal tower, a colossal spire piercing the heavens, its crystalline walls humming with the rhythm of past, present and future, begins to crumble. Without Dialga to anchor time, earthquakes rip through the land, stars flicker and die in the sky, and memories fade like mist, leaving Pokémon adrift in a collapsing existence. Darkrai's influence spreads like ink in water, twisting dreams into horrors that drive allies mad, forcing even the Guildmaster Wigglytuff into fits of rage. You feel it in the ground trembling beneath your paws, hear the distant roar of fracturing stone, smell the ozone of unraveling dimensions. This isn't mere theft or control, it's the end of everything. A void where time ceases to flow, and Pokémon face oblivion not at human hands, but through one of their own unleashed. What sets these mystery dungeon tales apart is how they delve into betrayal and redemption, without a single human to intervene or redeem the narrative. Guilds fracture under lies. Friends turn foes when false accusations spread like wildfire. Partners question loyalties forged in dungeon depths. And heroes must claw their way back from exile, proving their innocence through perilous trials. Take the sting of discovery in the fog-bound ruins, where a trusted comms mask slips, revealing greed or fear as the true motive. Echoing the raw pain of Pokémon society imploding on itself, yet redemption arcs weave through the despair. Outcasts rebuild shattered bonds, villains glimpse the error of their snarling ways, and even Darkrai's curse lifts, not through power, but forgiveness earned in the quiet moments after the towers fall. Primal Dialga, warped by the chaos, roars in temporal fury, but it's the player's unyielding partnership that restores balance, mending the world pore by pore. These stories pulse with emotional weight. Tears in the rain-soaked plains, triumphant cries echoing from restored towers, showing how Pokémon, left to their devices, mirror own flaws and hopes in a cycle of fall and rise. The series evolves this further in Explorers of Sky, expanding the guilds with new recruits and hidden dimensions, where betrayal's scars linger in every expedition. Team Skull slinks back for revenge, their greed undimmed. But now you navigate not just dungeons, but the moral mazes of a society rebuilding from near annihilation. Fogbound Lake whispers secrets of lost dimensions, and the Spinder Cafe buzzes with rumours of outlaws plotting in the shadows. Every choice weighs heavy. Will you forgive the betrayer who sold you out, or let bitterness poison your path? It's this intimate scale that makes the outlaws unforgettable, their crimes hitting closer than any frigate or ultimate weapon. As the tower stabilizes and the nightmares recede, a fragile peace settles over the land. But the echoes of greed and collapse remind every explorer of how thin the line is between harmony and havoc. You've journeyed through the spin-off shadows with me so far, from Almia's mind-controlled hordes to these Pokemon-only apocalypses. Up next in Chapter 21, the anime's eternal trio, we'll uncover the bumbling yet relentless duo +1 that's haunted Ash across countless episodes. Did you know their origins tie back to the very first games in ways that redefine their endless motto? Stick around if you can, otherwise, sweet dreams await. From the crumbling heights of Temporal Tower, where Darkrai's shadows nearly unraveled time itself, the world of Pokémon villainy shifts back to the bright, relentless spotlight of the anime. Here, no grand apocalypses loom. Just three voices chanting their motto under a rising balloon. Year after year, Jessie, James, and Meowth. For 25 years, they've been the unbreakable face of Team Rocket. Appearing in over 1,000 episodes, their silhouettes as familiar as Pikachu's cheeks. Picture their debut in the very first season, back in 1997. These weren't bumbling clowns yet. Jessie and James, with Meowth translating their schemes, stormed through Kanto like a real criminal syndicate. They snatched Pikachu right from under Ash's nose in Viridian Forest, their nets slicing through the air with precision. Explosions rocked the screen, not for laughs, but as desperate bids to capture rare Pokémon for Giovanni's empire. Meowth's fury swipes tore through barriers. James's wheezing belched poison gas that choked the paths ahead, and Jessie's Ekans coiled around trainers' legs before they could blink. They hijacked the St. Anne, sinking it in a chaotic escape, and even unleashed a Gyarados horde on the Cerulean Gym. Genuine threats, these three, their eyes gleaming with the cold profit motive of Team Rocket's oath, to exploit every Pokémon for glory. But persistence breeds change. Episode after episode, their plans crumbled. Blasting off into the stars became ritual, that signature whoosh echoing across regions. By the Orange Islands, the tone softened. Their disguises grew absurd. Fake mustaches peeling off mid-heist, motto recitals interrupted by Pikachu's thunderbolt. Laughter crept in, turning captures into comedy. James's rose-tinted monologues about his childhood bottle cap collection clashed hilariously with Jessie's diva rants over bad hair days. Meowth, the talking outlier dreaming of luxury, scratched at his humanity, pining for Persian's spot at Giovanni's side. They weren't just foils anymore. They were the comic relief that kept viewers hooked. Their failures a punchline woven into every adventure, yet evolution whispered deeper. As Ash journeyed through Hoenn, Sinnoh, Unova, their loyalty to Team Rocket frayed at the edges. They sabotaged Hunter J's shadow Pokémon schemes in the Diamond and Pearl era, Meowth's tech wizardry turning the tide against a far crueler foe. In Kalos, they shielded Ash from Lissandre's ultimate weapon glow, their balloon a fleeting shield in the chaos. Anti-heroes emerged fully in Alola, where they battled Ultra Beasts alongside the heroes, James's Mimikyu forming bonds that blurred enemy lines. And in Galar, they thwarted Oleana's schemes, their begrudging respect for Ash solidifying. No longer pure villains, but rivals with heart, flawed, funny family. This shift peaked in those anime-exclusive episodes buried in the Best Wishes series, the so-called Team Rocket versus Team Plasma lost episodes. Aired briefly in Japan around 2012, then pulled amid fan uproar and production tweaks. They pitted Jessie, James and Meowth against Ghetsis' green-armoured grunts in the wilds of Unova. Plasma sought true liberation, smashing Pokeballs and preaching N's gospel, but Rocket saw only rivals stealing their thunder. Disguised as street performers in Nimbasa City, the trio infiltrated a Plasma rally, Meowth hacking their comms to broadcast mocking jingles. Battles raged, Jessie's Frillish clashing with Plasma's Leopard in misty whirlpools, James's Amoonguss spawning decoys amid the chaos. They uncovered Plasma's brainwashing tech early, before Ash even stumbled on it, swiping a prototype device that jammed Curum's controls later on. Those episodes reshaped everything. Pulled after just a few airings due to pacing issues and over-the-top violence, like Meowth's claw slashing through a grunt's uniform, they leaked online, fueling fan theories. They humanized Plasma as fanatics while cementing Rocket's trio as chaotic good underdogs. Viewers saw Jessie cradle an abused Patrat, James ponder N's fractured ideals, Meowth translate a Purloin's plea, Impact rippled. Future arcs gave Rocket more heroic nods, their banter infiltrating memes and merch. Without those lost gems, the trio might have stayed pure comedy. Instead, they became eternal, bridging 25 years of laughter, loss, and unlikely redemption. Their motto still rings out in Journeys, voices hoarse but unbroken, chasing dreams amid the stars. But peel back the humour, and Team Rocket's roots run darker. Experiments on hearts, oaths sworn in shadows. The unfiltered brutality awaits in the manga's twisted pages, where no laughs soften the blows. Tune in for Chapter 22, the manga's darker path, and discover how Giovanni's empire devours souls without a single blast-off, while the anime softened Team Rocket into that endless cycle of comedic blast-offs with Jessie, James and Meowth. The Pokémon Adventures manga plunged straight into shadows, exposing a world where some of Kanto's most trusted gym leaders hid their true allegiance to Giovanni's empire. In this raw adaptation known as Pokémon Special, battles aren't playground scuffles. They're visceral clashes where Pokémon bleed, trainers scar, and defeat means oblivion. Red, the first Dex holder, stumbles into this nightmare early on, facing off against gym leaders who moonlight as Rocket executives. Giovanni, Viridian's Stoneface Master, isn't just a boss. He's the architect pulling strings from his gym's depths, engineering fossil revivals and Pokémon black markets with cold precision. But the real gut punch comes when Koga of Fuchsia and Sabrina of Saffron shed their public masks, revealing Rocket insignias beneath. Koga deploys his ninja poisons like venomous spectres, turning roots into kill zones, while Sabrina's psychic grip warps minds into obedience, Alakazam slicing through foes with telekinetic fury. These aren't heroes handing out badges. They're infiltrators, embedding Rocket's profit-driven creed into the league itself. All while smiling for photo ops. The stakes escalate brutally in arcs, where Pokémon battles become life and death gambits. Imagine Arbok's coils crushing bones, not just knocking out, or a Graveler self-destructing in a crowded stadium, shards embedding in flesh. Red loses an arm to a near-fatal Mewtwo clash later, but early on, it's the gym leader traitors who teach him the manga's harsh truth. Every command risks permanence. No respawns here, no Pokémon centers mending the irreparable. A fainted Mon might never wake, its spirit shattered, forcing trainers to evolve or perish. This brutal reality strips away the game's safety nets, making victories feel like survival, etched in blood and fractured bonds. Then darkness deepens with the Masked Man arc, a chilling saga where a time-controlling villain unleashes terror across Johto. This hooded figure, operating from the shadows of Team Rocket's revival, isn't some grunt. He's Price, Mahogany Town's icy gym leader, frozen in grudge for 3 centuries. Back in his youth, a Lapras vanished into time rifts near Whirl Islands. Price chased it through Celebi's portals, emerging unscathed but twisted, his body preserved in sub-zero stasis. Now he wields the mythical Celebi like a weapon, rewinding events to orchestrate Rocket's dominance. He freezes Blackthorn Gym in eternal winter, summons Suicune only to corrupt it, and bends timelines to predict every Dex holder's move. Gold faces him atop the Tin Tower, where Price's Delibird hurls icy barrages that could encase hearts in frost, but it's Celebi's green glow that truly horrifies. Loops of agony where fallen allies relive their defeats endlessly. Price's obsession peaks in a bid to claim all legendary birds, monsters and beasts, fusing them into ultimate weapons under Giovanni's banner. He shatters the mask of ice to reveal his scarred face, monologuing about lost eras, while his Piloswine burrows through time-warped earth. The Dex holders, gold, silver, crystal, unite in a frenzy of counters, Typhlosion's flames melting blizzards, Tyranitar's quakes destabilizing rifts. Yet Price slips back through Celebi's vortex one last time, hinting his grudge endures beyond arcs. This villain's temporal grasp turns battles into paradoxes, where a dodged hyper beam might loop back to strike true, amplifying the manga's dread that no victory is final. Rocket's manga empire sprawls further. Executives like Archer commanding armies from Goldenrod's radio tower, broadcasting signals that puppeteer wild Pokémon into frenzied hordes. They pursue Lugia in the seas, Deoxys from space, even Arceus in later volumes, each scheme bloodier than the last. Gym leaders like Lieutenant Surge pump their Raichu with unethical amps, turning electric fields into execution chambers. The manga's art captures it all. The sweat on Red's brow as Venusaur's vines tear through steel, the hollow eyes of experimented mons like the shadow Eacon's horde. It's a chronicle of exploitation, where profit devours innocence. And heroes like Yellow heal not just wounds, but souls warped by villainy. As these elite betrayals unfold, the true machinery of Rocket's menace grinds on through its rank-and-file soldiers, whose evolution from faceless fodder to something far more insidious awaits. In Chapter 23, the evolution of the grunt. Stick around, because their untold upgrades will redefine the threat lurking in every uniform. While the masked man wove his schemes through time itself in the manga's shadowed pages, bending gym leaders to his will, the core games thrust their villainy into the light through armies of faceless soldiers. The grunts, who clogged every route, guarded every hideout, and hurled their Pokémon at you in endless waves. These were no masterminds. They were the muscle, the rank-and-file devotees who turned grand illusions into gritty reality on the ground. Picture the earliest of them. Those black-clad thugs, prowling Kanto's underbelly. In the late 90s, their sleek suits like shadows come alive under the glow of Silph Company's towers. Team Rocket's grunts slunk through the Celadon sewers and Rocket hideouts' labyrinthine corridors, their voices echoing with cocky bravado as they blocked your path. Hand over your Pokémon, kid. They rode Eakons and Rattata like extensions of their own sly greed, poisoning foes with venomous strikes, or gnawing through defenses in the dim flicker of underground lights. Zubat swarmed from every cave mouth they guarded, their supersonic shrieks disorienting trainers who dared approach. These were profit-hungry opportunists, drawn from Kanto's forgotten corners, unemployed youths, petty crooks, dreamers lured by Giovanni's promise of easy riches from stolen rares and slowpoke tail auctions. To them, Pokémon weren't partners. They were merchandise, stacked in warehouses like crates of contraband. That template stuck, evolving with each region, but the grunt's core stayed raw and recognizable. Fast forward to Hoenn's stormy coasts around 2002, where Team Aqua's grunts splashed ashore in bandanas and wetsuits, salt-crusted and snarling about the sea's supremacy. Their Pokémon packs lunged from misty beaches, tiny jaws snapping with feral hunger, backed by Carvan tearing through waves. Across the lava fields, Team Magma's grunts baked under red hoods and capes, Numel trudging behind them like living furnaces, Camerupt erupting in showers of molten rock. Zubat still fluttered in their ranks, a constant from Kanto's caves, now adapted to humid grottos. These weren't just thieves. Archie's ocean zealots and Maxie's land purists preached a watery apocalypse or scorched rebirth, and their grunts bought in hook deep. Idealists radicalized by tales of drowned cities or parched seas, finding purpose in the crash of waves or rumble of earth. By Sinnoh's starry size in 2006, the grunt transformed again. Cloaked in Team Galactic's sleek astronaut-like uniforms of deep blue and silver, evoking cold cosmic voids, they patrolled Lake Verity's fog-shrouded shores, and Veilston's glittering department stores, Glameow slinking at their heels with hypnotic stares, Murkrow cawing omens from perches. Zubat persisted, now echoing through Mount Coronet's crystalline depths. Cyrus's followers weren't motivated by gold or floods. They chased oblivion, a spiritless new universe forged at Spear Pillar. These grunts, often sharp-dressed urbanites, whispered of emotions as flaws, their loyalty forged in the leader's emotionless gaze. A psychological surrender to nihilism, where individuality dissolved into the hive of red command pods. Unova's streets in 2010 brought Team Plasma's armoured knights, capes billowing like false banners of freedom. Their Leopard and Patrat scouting from Nimbaza's neon alleys or Driftvile's factories. Trubbish spewed toxins from rusted drums. Sandile burrowed under feet. And yes, Zubat navigated the tubular sewers. Ghetsis masked conquest as Pokémon liberation, and his grunts, Fractured idealists, runaway trainers, the disillusioned clung to the rhetoric. Hoenn's pure-hearted factions split the ranks, but most followed the pay and the power fantasy, shouting for the liberation while cradling stolen balls. It was a cult of performative virtue, crumbling when the king's strings snapped. Then Kalos in 2013 crowned the evolution. Team Flare's stylish cultists gliding through Lumiose City's boulevards in tailored red and black finery, Hounder at their sides with embers flickering like designer accessories. No more ragged uniforms, these were fashion-forward fanatics, holographic devices pulsing on wrists, their scraggy and Croagunk striking with precise, elegant fury. Lysandre's vision of beauty through annihilation drew aesthetes and elites, grunts who saw the world's ugliness in every crowded street and pledged to the ultimate weapon's purifying light. From the black-clad thugs of Kanto to the stylish cultists of Kalos, this progression mirrors the team's ambitions swelling from street crime to world-ending philosophies. Yet beneath the shifting aesthetics lies the psychological profile of a villainous henchman. Why do they follow these leaders? Peel back the uniforms, and you find the vulnerable core. A craving for belonging in a world that overlooked them. Rocket's grunts chased quick cash, a ladder out of poverty. Aquas and Magmas found eco-extremism's righteous fury, channeling personal grievances into tidal wrath or volcanic vengeance. Galactic sought escape from messy human feelings. Plasmas draped ambition in moral cloaks. Flares pursued perfection's allure. Charismatic leaders preyed on isolation, offering uniforms as identity, Pokémon as status symbols, battles as validation. Defeat after defeat rarely broke them fully. Rematches fueled the cycle, a gambler's high masking the void. They weren't evil incarnate, just ordinary souls amplified by hierarchy, disposable yet indispensable cogs in the machine. That brand cohesion shines through their Pokémon choices too. Notice the recurring use of signature Pokémon like Zubat and Pokémon to build brand identity. Zubat, that ubiquitous cave dweller, became the grunt's eternal mascot, blind screeching, multiplying in swarms from Kanto's rocket hideout to Unova's sewers, a symbol of lurking threat in the dark. Pokémon defined Hoenn's wild duality, scrappy and loyal for both Aqua and Ma, evoking untamed frontiers. Rattata gnawed Rocket's edges, coughing choked their air, Numel scorched Magma's paths, Glameow purred Galactic's sleek menace. These weren't random, they mirrored habitats and mindsets, instant visual shorthand. Spot a Zubat horde, and you know grunts lurk nearby, branding as potent as any logo, drilling loyalty into every fainted foe. Spin-offs echoed this too. Cypher's snaggers in Orre with their shadowed beasts, Dim Sun's styler twisted hordes in Almia. But the core games refined the grunt into a cultural fixture, their defeats your rite of passage. Even anime's Jesse and James, rocket elites, started as such foot soldiers, blasting off in explosions that became meme-worthy catharsis. You've battled them all, felt the monotony turn to rhythm, their taunts blending into white noise for weary trainers. But their bases, those fortresses of steel and stone, whispered deeper secrets, twisted reflections of ideology carved into every corridor and chamber. Tune in next for Chapter 24, The Architecture of Evil, where we'll uncover how these lairs weren't just hideouts, but monuments to madness that might just keep you listening through the night. Grunts don't just follow blindly. They gravitate towards spaces that mirror their leaders' twisted visions. Fortresses carved from shadow and steel that whisper promises of power. Take the Rocket hideout, buried beneath Celadon City's glittering game corner in the original Kanto games. You descend past a facade of flashing lights and slot machines into a multi-level maze of conveyor belts, sliding panels and hidden switches, each corridor pulsing with the low hum of illicit machinery. It's no accident that this underground lair feels like a predator's den. Walls lined with scientific equipment for Pokémon experiments and crates of stolen goods, forcing you to puzzle through traps that test your every step. This design isn't mere set dressing. It's a psychological weapon, drawing in those black-clad thugs we discussed last time by embodying Giovanni's ruthless efficiency. Rockets swarm the halls in packs, their Zubat and coughing, echoing off the metal bulkheads, turning navigation into a gauntlet of ambushes. The music seals the dread, a relentless, creeping synth melody that builds tension like a heartbeat, accelerating in the dark, urgency spiking as you hear distant alarms or the whir of elevators dropping more foes. Every dead end, every scientist's sneer, evokes the claustrophobia of being trapped in a syndicate's iron grip, mirroring the grunt's own entrapment in a life of theft and exploitation. As villainy evolves beyond Kanto's profit-driven crime, so do the bases, scaling up to match apocalyptic ambitions. Team Aqua's submarine lair off Dewford Town in Hoenn submerges you into oceanic gloom, corridors slick with seawater and patrolled by Sharpedo that lunge from murky tanks. The aesthetics shift to corroded blues and greens, bioluminescent lights flickering like deep-sea lures, while the soundtrack swells with watery distortions and pounding drums, urging haste before the floodgates open. Magma's desert hideout in the jagged pass contrasts with volcanic reds and ash-choked vents, pneumal-blocking lava-lit paths, its theme a grinding rumble that mimics earth cracking under Maxi's land expansion mania. These spaces gatekeep progress through mid-tier enforcers, the admins, who stand as narrative sentinels, neither disposable grunts nor untouchable bosses. In Rocket's hideout, Proton blocks the elevator with his venomous grin and muck, a snarling barrier demanding battle before you breach deeper labs. Ariana lurks in remakes like Fire Red, her Ariados webs ensnaring your advance, her taunts dripping with loyalty to Giovanni. They embody the hierarchy's spine, testing protagonists' resolve while rallying underlings, their defeats unlocking vaults of lore like the Silph Scope or Master Ball schematics. Galactic's architecture pushes this further into cosmic horror. Veilstone's galactic dome looms like a warped observatory, all sleek metallics and holographic displays, rejecting Cyrus's emotionless void. Lakes Verity, Acuity and Valorhost submerged or icy outposts where Mars, with her Purigly's glare, guards intel on Dialga and Palkia. Jupiter's Toxicroak poisons the air in the distorted world of Platinum, her presence a mid-tier boss checkpoint that heightens the stakes. But Mount, Coronet's spear pillar crowns it all, an open-air ruin atop the world's spine, pillars etched with ancient runes piercing storm-racked skies, wind howling as distortion rips reality. Here, the music and aesthetics fuse into pure dread, a choral dirge layered over dissonant strings and thunderous percussion, evoking urgency as the pillar rotates under auroral lights, legendary energies crackling. Galactic commanders like Saturn block the ascent with Golbat swarms, their role as gatekeepers amplified in this existential arena, where victory unveils Cyrus's portal to a spiritless universe. Plasma's mobile P2 laboratory in Unova floats like a steel behemoth, its sterile whites hiding sage cells and truth-warping tech. Colres as admin prototype tests your team before Ghetsis' shadow looms. Flare's Asandre labs in Kalos glitter with holographic opulence masking the ultimate weapon's core. Mabel's Houndoom snarling at energy conduits, aesthetics of fractured glass and crimson pulses screaming, beauty through annihilation. Even spin-offs echo this blueprint. Cypher's Relic Castle in Colosseum buries you in sandy traps and shadow Pokémon snarls. Deep Colosseum's admin, I'm unleashing quantized horrors as gatekeeper. Dim Sun's solar tower in Almia pulses with stolen styler energy, purple voids and mind-controlled minions under Blake's watch, the admin-like lieutenants forcing styler duels amid blinding lights. Pincher's bases in Guardian signs sprawl across volcanic isles. Edward's Subbos's blocking bird captures with capture nets humming ominously. These architectures aren't random. They sculpt dread through confined mazes, giving way to vast ominous chambers, music syncing pulses of bass and screeching highs to mimic encroaching doom. Grunts thrive here, aesthetics reinforcing ideology, Rocket's grit, Aqua's depths, Galactic's stars, while admins pivot the narrative, their falls cascading into leader confrontations. Spear Pillar stands as pinnacle, a vertigo-inducing apex where urgency peaks, pillars trembling as universes collide. Yet for all their grandeur, these layers hinge on one unbreakable thread, the legendaries that teams chase across generations. Next chapter. The legendary connection unveils how Kyoga's floods, Dialga's time warps, and Zygarde's overgrowth bind every scheme together, pulling back the veil on the gods villains dare to command. Deep within those labyrinthine bases, where the droning hum of machinery and the chill echo of footsteps build an unrelenting tension, the true heart of every villainous plot pulses with a singular obsession. Towering statues loom in Team Magma's volcanic lairs, carved in the likeness of Groudon itself, while the crystalline spires of Team Galactic's Veilstone headquarters seem to vibrate with the temporal distortions of Dialga's domain. These aren't just hideouts. They're altars erected to summon forces beyond mortal reckoning, drawing every faction inexorably toward the god-tier Pokémon that promise dominion over reality. You can trace it back to the earliest shadows of Kanto, where Team Rocket's ambitions started small, raiding labs, slicing slowpoke tails for black market coin. But even then, Giovanni's eyes gleamed with visions of Mewtwo, the bioengineered apex lurking in the shadows of Cinnabar's abandoned mansion. Why does every villainous team eventually target a god-tier Pokémon? It's the alchemy of power. Grunts handle the thefts and skirmishes, admins orchestrate the mid-tier chaos, but leaders crave the cataclysmic edge that only a legendary can provide. Rare Pokémon fetch fortunes, sure, but Mew, Lugia, Kyogre, they bend the world to your will. Rocket experiments with fossils and radio signals to upper-tier beasts, like the birds of Kanto. But it's the god tiers that elevate crime to conquest. Without them, you're just thieves in the night. With them, you're architects of apocalypse. Feel the weight of that escalation across the regions. In Hoenn's turbulent seas, Archie of Team Aqua doesn't stop at poaching Carvania or flooding coastal towns. He delves into ancient lore, unearthing the red orb from a submarine's depths, its crimson glow pulsing like a heartbeat stolen from the ocean's core. That orb resonates with Kyogre's primal fury, awakening the sea behemoth from its slumber beneath Route 132's currents. Maxi mirrors this hubris on land, blue orb in hand, rousing Groudon from magma-choked caverns to evaporate the waves and birth continents anew. Emerald's balance exposes their folly. Both teams clash at Sky Pillar, orbs clashing in a storm of steam and seismic rage, only for Rayquaza to descend and rebuke their overreach. This pattern etches itself into Sinnoh's starry voids with Cyrus and Team Galactic. Their lakefront facilities aren't mere outposts. Their nexus is tuned to the Creation Trio's frequencies. Cyrus, voice like polished obsidian, preaches a spiritless perfection, commanding grunts to distort time at Lake Verity for Mesprit's distress call, space at Lake Acuity for Uxie's evasion, and willpower at Lake Valor for Azelf's rebellion. At Spear Pillar, the pinnacle of dread where auroras twist into portals, he seizes the adamant and lustrous orbs. Or in Platinum's shadowed twist, the Griseous orb, to bind Dialga, Palkia, even Giratina from the distortion world. These artifacts aren't crude nets. They're metaphysical keys, forged from the legendary's own essence, sinking human will to divine mechanics until the pillars crack open dimensions. Unova sharpens the blade further with Team Plasma's duplicity. Ghetsis cloaks his tyranny in liberation rhetoric. But N's castle atop the Dragon Spiral Tower houses the Lightstone and Darkstone, vessels for Zekrom and Reshiram, truth and ideals warped into weapons of subjugation. In Black 2 and White 2, Kyurem's frozen citadel at Giant Chasm yields the DNA splicers, fusing the boundary Pokémon with Black or White Kyurem to forge the ultimate destroyer, its icy breath halting armies, its fusion a grotesque marriage of man and myth. Plasma's lieutenants wield these not through brute force, but through resonance. Stones that attune to the dragon's heroic legacies, perverted into chains. Lysandre's Team Flare in Kalos takes it to philosophical extremes, their holographic lairs in Lysandra Cafe and Geosenge hiding the ultimate weapons roots. Sunken in Kalos's crater, this ancient cannon drinks life energy from Flare's amassed stones, each a crystallized scream from Xerneas or Yveltal's cycles. But it's Zygarde cells they covet most, harvested from Terminus Cave to power the weapon's beam, intended to erase the world's ugliness in a flash of purifying red. Flare's tech amplifies this. Beauty drones scout Zygarde's fragments, while the weapon's core mimics legendary dormancy, awakening only when fueled to critical mass. Even spin-offs echo this gravitational pull. Cypher in Colosseum and X-Day. Gale of Darkness engineers shadow Pokémon through shadowfication machines in Relic Castle and Cypher Key Lairs, compressing auras into berserk obedience, but their endgame shadows the god tiers, snagging Ho-Oh or Lugia equivalents in purification battles. Pokémon Rangers face Go-Rock Squad binding Raikou, Entei and Suicune with Capture Styler overrides in Fiore's Waylord Belly. Team Dim Sun dims Almia's stars with a Volcano Tower pulsing Darkrai energy. Pincher's Net Articuno, Zapdos, Moltres via mechanized claws in oblivious skies. The recurring theme of humanity's hubris in trying to control the uncontrollable threads through it all. A tragic refrain sung by leaders who gaze at infinity and see mirrors. Giovanni's empire crumbles when Mewtwo shatters its psychic cage. Archie's floods recede under Rayquaza's roar. Cyrus's new universe fractures as spirit reasserts itself through the late Guardians. These god tiers aren't tools. They're embodiments of nature's wild code, forces like weather sovereigns, time weavers, creation engines. Villains exploit specific mechanics rooted in lore, orbs that harmonize with primal energies, splicers fusing essences, weapon siphoning F-force, radio waves hijacking migratory instincts, even manga arcs where the masked man bends Celebi's time ripples or Arceus's plates into obedience. Capture demands attunement. Red orb to Kyoga's drizzle aura, adamant crystal to Dialga's roar, turning exploitation into a ritual of dominance until the uncontrollable snaps back, humbling the hubris. In the anime, this manifests raw. Rocket's endless Mew hunts culminate in Lugia's whirlpool wrath or Necrozma's light-devouring eclipse. Magma and Aqua's Hoenn saga sees primal reversion overload their control. Manga's adventures escalates to Deoxys invasions orchestrated by rocket remnants, or Arceus unchained in Sinnoh's chaos. Everywhere, the god tiers serve as the plot's fulcrum. Villain schemes inflating like bubbles until legendary intervention pricks them. Protagonists mere catalysts for cosmic correction. Yet as these bases fall silent and leaders scatter, whispers linger of grander delusions, where control morphs into blueprints for paradise. What twisted perfections do these defeated dreamers blueprint next? You'll uncover those shattered visions in Chapter 26, the failed utopias. But what if that hubris wasn't just about seizing power over the legendaries? It was the villain's desperate blueprint for reshaping existence itself, turning ancient gods into tools for their fractured dreams. Giovanni's vision started simple, rooted in the gritty underbelly of Kanto's shadows. He saw a world bloated with untapped potential, where Pokémon wandered wild or loyally bound to weak trainers, squandering their strength on petty battles and friendships. His perfect world, a monolithic empire under his iron fist, every creature catalogued, bred and deployed like living weapons for profit and dominance. No more chaos of the safari zones or the whims of gym challenges. Team Rocket would harvest slowpoke tails for black mark elixirs, revive fossils into obedient slaves, and flood Silph Co. with stolen tech to craft master balls that bent even the rarest beasts to his will. Giovanni didn't rant about floods or voids. He whispered promises of glory to his executives, a reality where loyalty meant survival, and every Zubat echo in his hideout heralded the dawn of total control. Yet beneath the cigar smoke and Persian purrs, it was all born from disdain for a society too soft, too disorganized to harness true power. Cyrus took that ambition to cosmic scales, staring into the fractured heart of Sinnoh's lakes and mountains. Emotions, he declared, were the cancer, human spirits clashing in endless cycles of joy, rage, grief that warped the world's perfect order. His utopia, a sterile rebirth from the spear pillar's apex, Dialga and Palkia twisted through the red chain to unmake time and space, erasing the messy pulse of life for a flawless, spiritless expanse. Imagine the chill of Lake Acuity's Verity facility, where Glameow eyes gleamed under sterile lights, and his commanders like Saturn echoed his cold logic. No laughter from Valerie's waves, no fury from Acuity's guardians, just pure, unfeeling matter bent to mathematical harmony. Cyrus paced those galactic base, not as a madman, but as a surgeon excising the flaw of feeling, convinced his emotionless gaze made him the ultimate arbiter. Lissandra elevated it to art, his flare salons in Lumio City dripping with holographic splendor, and the scent of expensive cologne masking desperation. Kalos brimmed with ugliness for him. The grind of overpopulated streets, the decay of ancient ruins, lives piling like refuse. His perfect world ignited from the ultimate weapon's core. Zygarde's life energy siphoned to vaporize the flawed masses, leaving a pristine canvas for the elite few. Houndour packs prowled his ranks, their growls syncing with his charismatic speeches about beauty eternal, where fashion and philosophy reigned over the ashes of Geosenge. No grimy grunts here, but stylish zealots in red coats, wired to his vision of selective salvation. These perfect worlds, Giovanni's empire of exploitation, Cyrus's Void of Purity, Lysandre's Gallery of the Exquisite, form a comparative study in villainous delusion, each a mirror held up to reality's cracks. Giovanni reacted to scarcity and weakness, Cyrus to the chaos of sentiment, Lysandre to aesthetic rot. All convinced their god-wrestling schemes fixed what nature bungled. Every villainous plan traces back to that same fracture, a perceived flaw in reality demanding erasure. Rocket's profit grabs stemmed from a world too generous with its rarities. Aqua's tidal surges and magma's droughts from ecosystems out of balance. Plasma's false liberation from bonds they deemed slavery, but peeled deeper, and it's personal. The leader's scars projected onto the globe, legendaries mere catalysts for their rewrite. And here's the cruelest twist. These architects of apocalypse cast themselves as the heroes. Giovanni strode Viridian Gym like a king reclaiming his throne, his radio signals in Johto, a siren's call to the faithful. Cyrus meditated amid Mount Coronet's distortions, his red eyes burning with sacrificial nobility. Lysandre toasted in his cafes, a visionary purging the unworthy for art's sake. They weren't destroying, they were saving, their monologues dripping with self-righteous fire, blind to the protagonists who exposed the lie. In the end, those utopic blueprints crumbled not from heroism alone, but from the very realities they despised. Emotions rallying allies, flaws birthing resilience, legendaries slipping free to restore balance. Giovanni retreated to his gym, Cyrus vanished into distortion world echoes, Lysandre's weapon a smoking ruin under Zygarde's coils. Yet their echoes linger, tempting us to wonder what blueprints survived the fallout. Join me next for Chapter 27. The Legacy of the Villainous Teams, where we uncover how these shattered dreams reshaped the Pokémon world forever. Those grand visions of perfection, from Giovanni's criminal empire to Cyrus's emotionless void and Lysandre's gilded apocalypse, all stemmed from a deep dissatisfaction with the world as it stood. But even in their spectacular failures, these leaders etched a blueprint into the Pokémon franchise that refused to fade. The Big Bad, that singular, charismatic overlord at the helm of every villainous team, became the unbreakable spine of the series' storytelling, a narrative anchor that turned every region into a tale of hubris clashing against youthful heroism. Consider how this figure dominates from the very beginning. Giovanni, lurking in the shadows of Viridian Gym, wasn't just a boss. He was the embodiment of unchecked ambition, his Persian at his side like a living trophy of stolen power. His successors amplified the role. Archie's salt-sprayed rants on the deck of his submarine, Maxie's precise calculations in sterile labs, Cyrus's icy monologues atop Spear Pillar, where the fabric of reality thinned, Ghetsis, with his puppet strings on N, and that malevolent eye gleaming from beneath his fringe, twisted paternal betrayal into conquest. Lysandre, ever the philosopher king in his towering airship, preached beauty while wielding the ultimate weapon, like a divine eraser. Each one, through towering speeches and world-shaking schemes, forced the protagonist to scale not just mountains, but moral precipices. This big bad archetype ensured every game built to a personal showdown, where words cut as deep as any hyper beam, leaving players not just victorious, but changed. That structure proved so potent it infiltrated every corner of the franchise. In the anime, Giovanni's enduring shadow loomed over Jessie, James, and Meowth's endless capers, their balloon blasts and motto chants a comedic echo of his grand thefts, yet always circling back to targets like Mewtwo or Lugia, relics of his original sin-sins. The Pokémon Adventures manga darkened it further, with the Masked Man freezing time itself in pursuit of Celebi, or executives like Archer scheming across generations. Even spin-offs bowed to it. Cypher's Abyss in Colosseum, his voice distorted through a possessed body, or Greevil's frail mania in XD, both craving shadow Pokémon as tools for domination. The big bad wasn't optional. It was the gravitational pull, drawing grunts, legendaries, and players into orbits of inevitable collapse. Yet as the series matured, that rigid hierarchy began to fracture, most strikingly in the modern era. Sun and Moon arrived in Alola with Team Skull, a crew of baggy-panted punks blasting hip-hop from boomboxes on Potown's crumbling porches. Guzma, their self-proclaimed boss, strutted with Galissapod's claws snapping like mic drops, but his threats, petty turf wars and beach brawls, a far cry from awakening deities. These weren't world enders, they were outcasts, Kids chasing street cred in a region without gyms, their invasions of the Ether Foundation more prank than plot. Plumeria, the admin with her salazzle coiling like a protective big sister, even showed flickers of care beneath the bravado. Skull subverted the trope entirely. No legendary stolen, no doomsday device, just a gang mirroring the protagonist's own rival energy. Their defeat a heartfelt disbanding rather than fiery annihilation. Sword and Shield doubled down on this twist with Team Yell, a horde of Marnie superfans in punkish yellow gear, waving signs and jeering from Galar's stadium sidelines. Piers' little sister didn't need a globe-spanning conspiracy. Her team was just rowdy cheerleaders, heckling opponents with hype chants and obstagoon howls, their biggest crime blocking paths with sheer enthusiasm. Led not by a megalomaniac, but by fanatical loyalty, they harassed less like terrorists and more like overzealous tailgaters at a football match. No Cyrus-level nihilism here, just local colour, nuisances who melted away once the league spotlight shifted. This marked a deliberate shift from global threats back to local nuisances and misunderstood outcasts, a breath of fresh air after years of cataclysm, where Rocket seized Silph Co. and Galactic rent the universe. Skull and Yell cluttered beaches and bleachers, their evil rooted in personal gripes. Guzma's daddy issues, Yell's idol worship, rather than planetary overhaul. Alola's paradise islands and Galar's industrialized sprawl didn't demand apocalypses. They invited satire, poking fun at the formula while honoring it. Grunts traded Zubat swarms for stylish shades and attitude, their bases less fortresses, more squats. It humanized the enemy, turning faceless fodder into relatable rebels, and let protagonists like Elio or Victor grapple with empathy over extermination. That enduring influence of the big bad lingers even here, subtly threading the needle. Guzma echoes Giovanni's swagger without the genocide, while Rose in Sword and Shield flirts with old-school ambition via Eternatus, a nod to the archetype before Yell's chaos steals the show. The franchise's narrative structure remains hooked on opposition. Team versus trainer, but now with layers of irony, ensuring the legacy evolves without breaking. From Kanto's warehouses to Callus's salons, these villains taught us that true peril hides in the hearts of those who dream too big, their echoes rippling into every new region. And that brings us to the reckoning. In the next chapter, the final verdict will weigh every leader, every scheme, every shattered dream on the scales of Pokémon history. Who truly stands as the ultimate antagonist, and what does their reign say about us all? Drift off wondering, and we'll uncover it together. Even as Team Skull and Team Yell dialed back the apocalypse to petty disruptions and fanboy antics, they remind us that villainy in the Pokémon world never truly fades. It just reshapes itself. But to grasp the full scope, we must weigh every major team against the others, measuring their seismic impact on the game's stories, their razor-thin brushes with actual victory, and the profound, often chilling depth of their ideologies. Consider Team Aqua and Team Magma first, those mirror image eco-terrorists from Hoenn's stormy seas and scorched shores. Their dreams were bold. Archie craving a waterlogged paradise where oceans swallow the land, Maxie plotting a barren expanse of endless earth, but execution faltered at every turn. In Ruby and Sapphire, one dominates while the other lurks. Yet Emerald exposes their fragility, pitting them against each other as much as the heroes. Success rate near zero. Kyogre and Groudon rampage beyond control, primal forces rejecting their masters. Ideologically, they tapped into real-world environmental fury, land versus sea in eternal grudge. But it felt primal, underdeveloped, more grudge match than manifesto. Impact lingers in those drenching waves and cracking earth. Signature grunts with their Pokémon packs and numeral herds scurrying through rain-slicked caves. Yet they rank low, tied at the bottom, passionate sparks that fizzled in the tide. Above them sits Team Flare, Kalos's glittering obsessives under Lysandre's megalomaniac gaze. Picture their holographic lairs pulsing with red light. Hounderpups snarling at intruders, all in pursuit of purging the Oogly world through the ultimate weapon. A life-draining cannon powered by Zygarde's essence. Lysandre's philosophy cut deepest among the fashion plate fanatics. Beauty as the only virtue, humanity's excess as the ultimate sin. They nearly fired that doomsday device, siphoning energy from an entire region, but the protagonist shatters it, and Lysandre perishes in flames. success edged higher than Aqua's floods or Magma's droughts. Blair controlled Xerneas and Yveltal briefly, their tech almost tipping the scales. Impact echoes in Kalas's elegant ruins, but the ideology, for all its poetic venom, crumbles under its own vanity. Solid mid-tier, but not the pinnacle. Team Plasma climbs higher, that fractured cult from Unova's black and white schism. Ghetsis' silver tongue preached liberation. Pokémon freed from human chains, while N, the Puppet King, embodied genuine belief, riding Zekrum's thunder or Reshiram's blaze toward a world apart. In black and white too, they fuse Kyurem's ice with dragon legends, nearly freezing the region in conquest. Success rate spikes here, and actually ascends as champion briefly. Plasma scatters but reforms under the Shadow Triad's veil, ideologically richest yet, exploring slavery, coexistence, manipulation's grey zones. Their Patrat scouts and Purloin thieves embody the lie within the truth. Impact reshaped Unova's soul, forcing players to question their own bonds. They nearly broke the cycle, ranking strong but haunted by internal betrayal. Team Rocket, those eternal Kanto shadows, demands respect for sheer endurance. Giovanni's empire started with fossil revivals and slowpoke tail harvests, fat swarms echoing through Celadon sewers and mahogany radio towers. They seized Silph Co., cloned Mewtwo, controlled beasts via signals in Johto, both sworn to exploit every Pokémon for profit and glory. Success, patchy but persistent. World domination slips away in Generation 1, but revivals in gold and silver nearly topple gyms again. Ideology stays simple, greed as gospel, yet its depth grows in anime marathons with Jessie, James and Meowth's endless blunders, manga epics clashing with dex holders over Lugia and Deoxys. Impact, unmatched. Rocket defines villainy, their black uniforms a franchise cornerstone. They rank elite, the baseline every team measures against. Then Team Galactic, Sinnoh's cold void-staring zealots, Cyrus's emotionless cult commandeered lakes, and Veilston's neon sprawl. Glamiao executives prowling with Zubat flocks towards spear pillars distortion, erasing spirit from existence, remaking reality with Dialga's time or Palkia's space. Giratina's distortion in Platinum adds abyss. They captured the Lake Guardians. Brainwashed commanders, like Mars and Jupiter, stood inches from universal unmaking. Success rate peaks. Cyrus touches the god's power, the red chain binding creation itself before the protagonist intervenes. Ideology plunges deepest, nihilism's pure chill, human spirit as flaw, questioning existence in ways no other dares. Impact warps Sinner stars, their theme's droning synth still chills. They claim second, ambition's frozen throne. At the apex towers Team Rocket, not for ideology's poetry or victory's grasp, but for impact's unbreakable grip. No one else spawned a cultural empire, from grunts to Giovanni's Persian, lounging in Viridian Gym. Their persistence across generations, experiments birthing Mewtwo's rage, eclipses even Galactic's cosmic gamble. Aqua and Magma dreamed big but drowned, Flare shone bright but burned out, Plasma fractured on truth, Galactic stared into nothing. Rocket endures, a shadow in every region, spin-offs whisper lower still. Sifa's shadow Pokémon in Orre's Colosseums, Dim Sun's energy siphons in Almia, Finch's snaring Articuno's wings, but they lack the core game's weight, mechanics over mythos. This hierarchy reveals the ultimate lesson, woven through every scheme, every shattered orb and failed summoning. The bond between human and Pokémon proves unbreakable. Giovanni's thefts rebound with Pikachu's thunder. Cyrus's chains snap under Dialga's roar. Ghetsis' lies dissolve in N's awakening. Protagonists don't win alone. It's that profound partnership, trust forged in battles and berries, that thwarts apocalypse after apocalypse. Villains grasp power through control, but Pokémon choose loyalty, turning hubris to dust. As Pokémon's world swells, Scarlet and Violet's paradoxes twisting time, Aldea's treasures guarded by new shadows. Villainy evolves too. Expect subtler threats, ideologies blending with discovery. Perhaps teams allying with heroes against greater voids, yet the core endures. No scheme outlasts the wild hearts of Pokémon, roaming free under eternal stars. Drift into that truth tonight, where even dreams bow to unbreakable bonds. What did you think of this journey? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If this changed your perspective or taught you something new, consider subscribing for more mind-expanding content. And if you know someone who would find this as fascinating as you did, share it with them. These are the kind of conversations that matter.